What does this manhwa have to offer? Well, massive boobs, check. Thick thighs, check. A fantasy onsen scene, check. And a psychopath main character who starts off as one of the weakest demon lords in the world. But instead of training to become the strongest like some other amateur MC, this guy just manipulates his way to the top and uses everyone's weaknesses to his advantage, leaving even the proudest high-ranking demons in a crying mess, or turning the most feared demons into his personal servants. Wait, what's Luigi doing here? Anyways, this MC would go as far as buying out all the miracle herbs that could cure a pandemic just to sell them later for profit, because who cares if the peasants die? If this caught your attention, keep watching to see what happens. It all begins in a dark cave. While gasping for air, he curses at his situation, wondering how he even ended up in this place. His father had recently passed away, and he had hated his father his whole life, constantly hoping for his father's death, and on this day it actually happened. His father had died of a heart attack. His father was a criminal, a womanizer, and a greedy piece of crap, causing nothing but trouble in his life. However, his father had done one good thing for him after dying. After cleaning up the house, he wonders if his father knew that his death was approaching, although he didn't care either way. He tells himself not to care about it, and while opening the curtains, seeing workers go to hell, what they call a workplace. Outside, while sipping his coffee with a grin, he celebrates after taking in the moment, saying that he can finally be a full-time NEET. His shitty father had a secret fortune left lying around in the house basement, around 500 million yen. While sinking into the sofa, he says that his father might not have been that bad in the end. With this much money, he could do anything he wanted, a villa, a new car, even women, anything was possible. But he wasn't really interested in any of that. He hears the doorbell ring and his eyes shine brightly, already knowing what was waiting for him outside. He grabs the package even before the delivery guy could finish greeting him and shuts the door before the person could thank him. He dives into his bed while celebrating, saying that his dream bedroom was finally set up, costing him a total of 30 million yen. He had made 3 vows to himself: to not work a single day in his life, not to make any friends, and to never get married. And work was the absolute worst for him among the 3. Having friends meant a constant battle of one-upping each other over where someone managed to get a job and going out to eat. And then marriage, where people vow to spend the rest of their lives with someone they love. This shitty, scummy, stinking piece of shit father had made those vows no less than 12 times in his life. He didn't want to repeat his father's mistakes. Rather than that, just playing games on his comfy futon was the definition of paradise for him. He wanted to complete all the games that had been piling up. 2 months later, he finishes a game called Dungeon Attack, but it took quite some time to finish, and his room was filled with garbage everywhere. He wonders what he could play next, going through the games, wondering if he should try a VR game next, but then he hears a ring. The TV shows that he had a message. He wonders how he got a message, even though he didn't accept any friend requests. But it was just a thank you message from the creators of the game. He wonders if they were trying to flatter him into buying more stuff from them, understanding that it was part of their business. But he was asked to take part in a survey, and the first question was if he preferred cute girls or mature girls. He asks what kind of weird question that was, but since it was just a game survey, he picks at random. The second question was if he got excited when people hit him or excited when he hit people. It was another weird question, and as he kept answering, the questions got weirder and weirder. He asks how many of these questions he had to answer, and then the question was if he knew how the world ended. He stops complaining and says that he obviously knows it since he had completed the game. Then the question is asked if he was capable of changing the ending. He says that this was seriously creepy as hell, but then he realizes something. He asks if this message was some kind of fake message meant to scam him. He tosses his controller to the side, saying that he really couldn't trust anything anymore, saying that he was glad to not have fallen for it. But then he sees a cockroach walking on the table in front of him. Scared, he jumps up, grabbing anything he could find to throw at it, accidentally clicking the button on the controller, choosing the yes option on the survey. The screen goes brighter and brighter, blinding him for a second. When the light fades, he is gone from his room. He asks what happened to him while panting and looking down at his arms. He knows that these are his arms. He feels a sudden jolt of pain, and a person asks him to hurry and say where the treasure was hidden. The stranger says that they would get more serious if he didn't tell them now, while calling him a demon lord. This was how his new, awful life began inside the game he had just completed. He looked at them in confusion, wondering what was happening. He had no idea what treasure they were talking about or why they kept mentioning a demon lord. He wondered if they were talking about him as he glanced around, The place looked strange, and he couldn't understand what was going on. The last thing he remembered was playing games at home, but he knew he needed to prioritize surviving this situation. His entire body was in pain, and with one leg broken, there was nowhere for him to run. The pain made it hard to think straight, but he tried to calm himself down and think of a way out. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and told the strangers to wait. Deciding to gather some clues from them, he asked why they were calling him a demon lord. One of the strangers grabbed his horn and asked if he had finally lost his mind after all the beating they had given him. The stranger called him Demon Lord Dantalion. He knew that name from an RPG where heroes went on a journey to defeat demon lords, Dungeon Attack. A fantasy game where the player saves the world by fighting against numerous demon lords. It was an insanely difficult game where the player died again and again. Its story was depressing with only one ending, the collapse of the world. And as for Dantalion, he was the trash of the 72 demon lords, ranked 71st, the weakest enemy in the game and one of the very first demon lords to be defeated by the heroes. He remembered that before ending up here he had been playing that game and had been forced to answer a strange survey afterward. There was no doubt about it. This was the world of Dungeon Attack, and he was the weakest demon lord. He wondered how something like this was even possible, but it explained everything. And this situation was seriously bad for him. The strangers lost their patience while waiting for him and punched him across the cave. Dantalion stumbled back, thinking that if this continued, he would surely die. The stranger looked back at his companions and told them to beat up Dantalion. They all stepped forward and began beating him mercilessly. Dantalion wondered why this was happening to him. He had finally freed himself from that cursed father of his. He had thought he could finally live a comfortable life. But now he was here on the verge of death. His consciousness began to fade. He saw a vision of a man sitting in a bright white room. It looked like his father, and he was laughing. Dantalion had suffered too much because of his father. He remembered something like this happening before. In the past, he had been kidnapped by someone who held a grudge against his father. During the fourth time he was kidnapped, even the kidnapper was shocked by how strangely calm Dantalion was. He had already reached his limit, so he let it happen and stayed calm. That's when he made a bet. The kidnapper pointed a gun at him and said he would kill Dantalion if he made a fuss. The bet was simple, to see if he could free himself from his shitty father. Dantalion told the kidnapper to shoot him. If the gun was real, the kidnapper would win. Beads of sweat formed on the kidnapper's face as he asked if Dantalion was serious. Dantalion freed himself from the ropes and placed his hand over the gun, pointing it straight at his own head. If the gun was fake, then Dantalion would lose the bet and return to his father's mercy forever. The trigger was pulled. Nothing happened. The kidnapper stumbled back, asking what was wrong with Dantalion. In the end, the kidnapper surrendered himself and Dantalion lost the bet. But he learned something that day. Those who survive in this world are the ones with the stronger resolve. It was something he had forgotten over time. The stranger attacking him told him this was his last chance to comply. He stepped forward again and demanded the treasure while stomping on Dantalion's head. Dantalion thought that he had already died once, on the day that trigger was pulled. Now he could shape this situation however he wanted. The stranger asked if Dantalion planned to take the treasure with him to hell, snapping his fingers. A man carrying a massive hammer stepped forward. The stranger said they weren't a patient bunch. The bald man asked if their boss was sure about killing Dantalion before finding out where the treasure was. The boss replied that they would find it later anyway and told the bald man to kill him. The bald man raised his hammer, telling Dantalion to regret his choice in hell. Suddenly, Dantalion agreed to tell them where the treasure was. The hammer stopped mid-swing. The boss smirked as Dantalion slowly pushed himself back up, determined to survive no matter what. The baldy starts laughing and asks if Dantalion gave up. Dantalion didn't even know if there was any treasure in his dungeon, and if he just pointed in a random direction, the thugs would kill him without hesitation before going to look for it. The first thing he had to do was buy himself some time. Dantalion falls to one knee and says that the bandits have completely and utterly defeated him. He tells them that the treasure they were seeking was in the demon lord's chamber. But then he goes on to say that the treasure was hidden with magic, and the only one who could undo the magic was Dantalion himself. He finally raises his gaze to look at their reactions, but is met with a glowing flash of light slicing inches away from his face. The bandit leader thrusts his weapon down into the ground and says that if this was a lie, then Dantalion would be killed on the spot. Dantalion says that he understands as a bead of sweat rolls down his cheek. The bandit leader then asks if the others heard what Dantalion had said. He tells them to prepare to go to the demon lord's chambers. Dantalian sighs in relief, having managed to overcome the first obstacle. But the real battle was yet to come. He had made it so that the bandits needed him alive for now. However, that was only until they got to the Demon Lord's chambers. He had to think of the next plan quickly. While he was thinking, the bandit leader tells Dantalia to walk faster. Dantalia apologizes while limping. The leader asks if Dantalia was stalling to buy time and tells him to go faster. At the rate they were going, it was only a matter of time before he was killed. He thinks that he had to somehow kill them before they killed him. But he was outnumbered 10-1 and each of them was armed. He looks around to see if he could use anything to help him, remembering that he was inside Dantalia's dungeon. He wonders if there weren't monsters in this dungeon. The bandit leader looks at him and tells him to keep moving again. The bandit leader had already planned to kill Dantalia as soon as he removed the magic on the treasure. Dantalia notices that he had been seeing the remains of monsters around them for a while, but all of them were already skeletons. None were fresh. He thinks that he couldn't rely on others and that he had to find a way to do everything himself. He wonders how close they were to the Demon Lord's chamber, thinking that if this were the real game, he could have just... His thought suddenly stops. He found his answer in the question itself. A wide grin forms on his face as he uses a skill called Eyes of Zeus. This was indeed the game's world, even though it was all real, so he should be able to use his skills, he thought. The map of his dungeon appears in front of him with various details and icons. Eyes of Zeus was a skill from the game Dungeon Attack. It allowed the user to see his current location, enemy positions, items, and traps within the dungeon. It was a high-level skill normally only available from the middle of the game, but there was one place where it could be used from the early game. It was in the first tutorial dungeon that adventurers visited to learn game mechanics, the dungeon named Dantalia's Castle. Until now, he had been cursing the fact that he had become Dantalia of all characters, but it ended up being useful in a way. While looking at the status of his dungeon, his smile faded. There were no troops in the dungeon. Then something flashes into his eyes, a warning that the number of troops was 0 and that it was extremely dangerous. It prompts him to hire more troops immediately. Another window pops up, a skill called Contract with Hades, which allowed the user to hire monsters. It was a skill that all demon lords possessed. While thinking about what he could hire, he sees that he only had 100 Libra. He wonders what the original owner of the body was even doing until now. With this little money, he could only hire about 8 goblins, and it would be impossible for the goblins to beat 10 bandits. He wonders if he should get a single golem and set up a surprise attack. But there was no guarantee he would win, as they were already almost at the chambers. After looking at the map and the possible monsters he could hire, he comes up with a plan with a success chance of around 60%, too low for him to risk his life normally. But there was no time for him to think otherwise. He had no other choice but to go with his plan. He glares at the bandits with an intent to kill while preparing his plan. But for this plan to work, he first had to gain the bandits' trust, and for that he needed to know something about them. He uses a skill that allows him to see the bandits' stats. He starts laughing to himself while seeing the stats of the bandits. The bandit leader notices him in the back and tells him to walk faster again while pointing a sword at him. Dantalia apologizes again and begins his counterattack. The skill he used is called the Apostle of Aphrodite. It allowed him to see details that were normally hidden and even read their thoughts to some extent. With the information he gained, he now had options to play his cards right. The first part of Dantalia's plan was to make the enemy leader trust him a little, even if it meant taking a risk. He promises himself to take all the bandits down. After walking for a while, they arrive at a narrow point in the cave. He sees a dead monster with an arrow in its head and comes up with a plan. He shouts at the bandits to stop moving. They all look back at him, and the leader asks what Dantalia was doing now. Dantalia points at the passage ahead and says that there were traps there. The leader asks what that meant. Dantalia walks up to him and says that if they go any further, a dozen invisible arrows would come flying at them, and none of them would get through unscathed. He walks past the bandits and says that he will proceed on his own to deal with the trap. The bandit leader tells Dantalia to stop spouting nonsense. One of his men calls out and says that the road ahead was narrower from this point. Another says that it was also too dark to see inside. The bandit leader tells Dantalia to stop trying to run away. Dantalia stops and says that the bandits don't need to worry, as it would be impossible for him to run away with his injured legs. Besides, Dantalia tells them that this was his way of showing them respect. He says that the bandits were different from the adventurers he had faced before. He says that the bandits didn't kill him right away. He tells them to follow right behind him if they didn't believe him. He says that he can't guarantee their safety if they do. The bandits are shocked, but the bandit leader recovers quickly and tells his men not to get scared and to follow him. One of the men stops the leader and says that they should think it over first. The others also agree, saying that if they made a mistake with the trap, it would surely not end well. The bandit leader asks if they were even real men. While they were arguing, Dantalia walked inside with a wide grin on his face. After walking deep enough into the cave, he turns back and takes out the arrows he picked up from the skeleton outside, hoping that his plan works, because this was where things really got started. He braces himself and lifts an arrow up, stabbing himself with it. The bandits hear his pained screams from outside. They all look at each other, asking what they just heard. The leader asks Dantalia what just happened. Dantalia tells them not to come in yet, saying that the traps were still active. The bandits ask what they were supposed to do now, and the leader tells them all to get ready and that he would kill anyone who bylaid on him here. They look at each other, fearing for their lives, and reluctantly follow their boss. After walking in, the leader asks where Dantalia was. One of his men notifies him about something ahead. It was a trail of blood leading deeper into the cave. They start following the trail and find Dantalia at the end. They ask what happened to him. Dantalia groans in pain and looks up at them, saying that he must have been unconscious. The bandit leader asks what happened to the trap. Dantalia says that they can be at ease as he had taken care of all the traps for them. The bandits look at each other, relieved, but the leader is confused. He asks why Dantalia would help them. He asks if it wouldn't have been better for Dantalia to stay quiet about the traps. Dantalia places a hand on his chest and says that it was as he said before, that the bandits were different from the adventurers who tried to kill him right away. He says that the bandits allowed him to live, which moved him and made him want to repay them. He says that he got hit by an arrow, but it wasn't a problem. He pulls out the arrow and says that they can continue again. The leader wonders if Dantalia was actually being serious. Dantalia sees that the leader's lickability toward him had increased by 5. Dantalia's eyes go wide as he sees that the same was true for all the other bandits as well. He was waiting for this, but it wasn't enough. He needed to increase it further. His act had only just begun, and he wonders what he could do next for his second act. Dantalia says that they should keep moving while struggling to get back up. The bandit leader wasn't sure what Dantalia was doing, but decided that he could use him if he played his cards right. He tells Dantalia that he would just slow everyone down with his wound, and that he has no other choice. The leader looks back at his men and tells one of them to lend Dantalia a shoulder. One of the men quickly helps Dantalia. Dantalia thanks them with a surprised look, and the bandit leader bursts out laughing, asking why Dantalia was surprised. He says that Dantalia saved them, and this was their gratitude for what he did. He then turns around and tells them to move once again. Dantalia grins when no one is watching. Everything was going according to plan. But the leader was a tough nut to crack, something he had already expected. Still, it wasn't enough. He wanted them to trust him even more. Before long, they reached the entrance of the demon lord's castle. The bandit leader says that it was even more impressive than he had imagined while laughing. They push the gates open. The leader starts fantasizing about the treasures already. He turns to Dantalia and asks him to show them where the treasure was hidden. A tear drops to the floor. Dantalia was crying for some reason. The bandits look at him surprised and ask why he was crying. Dantalia apologizes, saying that coming back here reminded him of his former comrades. He says that they were like a family to him. The bandit leader asks if demon lords also had families. While slowly walking forward, Dantalia says that they do have families. In the past, he too had those he called family until one day when an army appeared. He was chased through the castle. They aimed at him with their bows and shot without warning. He braced himself to be hit with a dozen arrows, but when he opened his eyes, an orc had shielded him with its own body while asking if Dantalia was all right. The orc tells Dantalia to go on and escape as he holds the army back. Dantalia asks what the orc was talking about and says that if he leaves, then the orc should come with him too. The orc gets hit with another volley of arrows. The orc tells Dantalia not to worry about him and says that he would follow after Dantalia later. He tells the bandits that he had to leave his family behind while they tried to hold the enemies back to protect him. He says that they all died that day. The bandits, who had been awkwardly listening to the whole story, start sympathizing with him. One of them says that he thought a demon lord would be much worse than Dantalia, but Dantalia was mourning his dead comrades. He says that Dantalia doesn't seem evil at all. Dantalia sees their trust skyrocket. The bandit leader thinks that this was totally different from what he had heard. A woman had told him that a demon lord was the lowest scum, one with no blood or tears. But despite his doubts, his trust in Dantalia increases as well. He thinks that all that matters is whether Dantalia was useful to him or not. Dantalia calls out to them and thanks them with a sincere look for bringing him back to his castle. He says that the bandits were different from those who killed his family. He says that his dead family might forgive him if he gave up his treasure to someone so worthy. He tells them that his treasure, the demon lord's castle, and his life were all theirs. Dantalian guides the bandits toward the demon lord's chambers. The bandits look in awe at the grand room in front of them. Dantalian turns around and says that he was going to give them his treasure just as he promised. The bandit leader asks where their treasure was while looking around. Dantalian reminds the bandits that it was hidden with magic. He tells them that he would undo the magic now and asks them all to stand back. The leader says that he understands and barks at his men to step back. They all group up near the entrance and ask if that was far enough. Dantalian says that it was good enough. He turns around and starts walking again. Just a little more and his plan would succeed. He begins his finishing touches. He knew, after looking at his status, that there was no such thing as a treasure in his castle to begin with. The only thing he had left was the 100 libra left to him by the previous owner of the body. But as long as it was enough to fool the dumb bandits, it was perfect. In this world, 1 libra was about 15 silver coins. In the game, once someone discards an item, it falls right in front of them. He takes advantage of this mechanic and decides to discard 76 libra. But before he does, he turns around, pulling his hand up dramatically, saying that he was the 71st ranked demon lord who ruled this land, Dantalian. He calls the bandits brave heroes and says that he would give them his treasure. The bandits all stare at him with anticipation, and on cue, the libra he discarded starts appearing out of thin air all around them like a rain of money. They all watch in awe, laughing awkwardly and saying that this had to be a dream. The leader laughs out loud, seeing the coins raining down. The bandits start collecting the coins from the ground. The leader thinks that they actually got the treasure and starts laughing like a madman. His trust toward Dantalian increases dramatically. He tells his men that they were going to divide the treasure equally and tells them to gather it all quickly. He thinks that they could make use of the demon lord even further, as it would be a waste to get rid of him. Dantalia takes his chance and asks if he could have a moment of their time. The bandit asks what it was, quickly, asking if Dantalia had more to give them since everyone was busy collecting the treasure for now. Their trust was increasing noticeably. Dantalia, in a low voice, apologizes for inconveniencing them and says that there was something he had to speak to them about immediately. He tells them that there were about 30 new adventurers who had entered the dungeon. The bandits stop what they were doing and look at Dantalia. Dantalia tells them that he had magic that informed him when someone entered his dungeon and that he wasn't expecting something like this. The bandits start panicking. Their leader thinks that 30 people were way too many, not something the bandits could take on. He asks Dantalia if there was another way out of the castle. Dantalia tells them that there wasn't and that they had to go the way they came to leave. The bandits ask what they were supposed to do if the adventurers attacked the castle, saying that they could tear the place apart in less than a minute if there really were 30 of them. They all start arguing about plans, and their leader is lost. That's when Dantalia offers the leader a plan. He says that if they couldn't avoid them, they should confront them instead. The leader asks what Dantalia meant. Dantalia asks if the bandits had a map of the place. The bandit quickly says that they do. Dantalia says that his powers weren't enough to tell them which path the intruders took. However, he offers to act as a decoy. The leader looks surprised. Dantalia says that given the enemy numbers, they were probably some kind of military division, meaning that they would use magic as well. They would surely sense Dantalia's magical power and head toward him. He tells them that there were 3 routes from where they were to the exit. He tells them to take a different route than him and run straight outside. The leader wonders if Dantalia was sacrificing himself again. Then he asks if Dantalia wasn't going to run away or something, and if the information about the intruders was even true or just a bluff. Dantalia acts offended, saying that he would never do something like that and that he just wanted to truly help them. He tells the leader that there was no time to convince them to believe him, then goes up to the leader and whispers something into his ear. The leader suddenly starts smiling after hearing what Dantalia said. He immediately agrees to go along with the strategy, but asks Dantalia not to tell the others about the decoy plan, saying that it would only upset them. He then turns toward his men, tells them to stop making a fuss, and orders them to speed up, collect the treasure, and assemble. Dantalia believed that the leader wouldn't fully believe him. After convincing the leader, Dantalian is assigned 5 bandits to act as his escort. One of them turns around, saying that he didn't expect Dantalian to make such a bold move. Dantalian knew why their leader made such a reckless decision. A little while ago, after the bandits gathered all the coins, the leader told them that they were splitting into groups of 2 and heading for the exit. The bandits asked if their leader was serious, saying that it made no sense. He tells them to shut up and look at the map. He says that there were 3 routes leading to the exit from there. The invaders would be cautious and would probably only take one route. With 30 men, it was more like a small army, and the bandits were no match for them. He asks if they shouldn't take their chance at surviving. Seeing their jaws drop, he tells them to relax, saying that there was a 100% chance that at least one group would survive, and if they were lucky, no one would die. He also tells them that he was going to keep all the treasure for now. The bandits weren't happy hearing that. He quickly tells them to relax again, saying that he wasn't trying to keep it all for himself. He says that the second team would be going with the Demon Lord and tells them to consider it a blessing in disguise. If the second group survived, they would get the bounty on Dantalia's head and instantly become heroes. He says that he was the one taking the short end of the stick. Before they could say anything, he asks them if they had any guts and whether they wanted to die here like dogs. He asks who would look after their families back in the village and calls them spineless cowards, saying that he wanted all of them to survive more than anyone else. His bravado manages to convince some of the bandits, but they all belong to his team anyway. While walking on the safe cave route, the leader calls his men idiots for being fooled so easily. At one point, he thought his convincing might have failed. But when he asked if the Demon Lord was planning to run away, Dantalian told him that he would never do it. And if that wasn't enough, Dantalian whispered that the leader should send some of his men with him to make sure he didn't run away. Dantalian also told the leader to make up some reason to keep all the treasure for himself. That way, the leader would have everything to his advantage, since those going with Dantalian would be sacrificed, and the leader's share of the treasure would naturally increase. Even if Dantalian was lying, there was no escape for him anyway, a win-win situation for the bandits. The leader starts grinning, thinking that all was well as long as he came out on top. Dantalian knew that the leader's greed would blind him. Now he could easily carry out his plan. While opening the contract with Hades' skill to summon monsters, he promises to kill every single one of these bandits. The earth suddenly starts shaking. The bandits ask what was happening and whether the invaders were attacking. They notice the ground glowing. It was a summoning circle. Heavy wind blows out from the circle, sending dust clouds toward them and blowing out the torches they were holding. The man supporting Dantalian asks if he knew what was going on. Dantalian places his hand over the bandit's face and whispers that it would be better if he didn't make any sound unless he wanted to suffer more. He grabs the bandit's sword, says that he was indebted to him, and drives the sword into the bandit's heart, killing him. The others are still distracted by the summoning circle. Rocks start floating in the air, piling up and forming a stone golem. The golem roars loud enough to terrify the bandits, causing rocks from the ceiling to fall everywhere. One of the bandits is too stunned to move when a rock falls right next to him. When the dust settles, he sees a hand sticking out from under a rock. He hears someone screaming from within the golem's grasp. He runs toward the golem and jumps, striking its head, only for his sword to snap in half. As he stares at his broken sword, the golem raises its fist and crushes him beneath it. One of the remaining bandits stands shaking in fear, unable to form sentences properly, staring at the golem. Dantalian appears behind him. The bandit calls out to Dantalian, telling him that they should run away. Suddenly, he feels a sharp pain in his back. He slowly turns around to see a sword pierced through his chest. He asks why Dantalian would do this before falling to the ground. With a grin, Dantalian asks if it wasn't obvious. After all, he was a demon lord. Meanwhile, the other team senses the earthquakes caused by the golem. The leader wonders if the team he sent as bait had started fighting the intruders. He thinks that he was glad he listened to the demon lord. But then they hear footsteps approaching from the darkness ahead. It was Dantalia. The bandit leader looks at him, confused, wondering why he was there. Then he laughs, saying that he gets it now and assumes the other team hadn't run into any intruders either. He asks where the others were. Dantalia pulls out the sword he used to kill them and says that every single one who followed him was dead. The bandit leader grits his teeth, telling Dantalia that this wasn't funny and to stop fooling around. Dantalia asks if he was unable to accept reality. He says that it was just as they suspected, he was the one who killed them all. Their trust drops to zero exactly as he wanted. He mocks them, laughing hysterically, provoking them as much as he could. The bandits rush toward Dantalia to kill him. He stays where he is, standing in the darkness of the cave, his eyes glowing red. When they get close enough, the golem slams into the cave wall, burying one bandit under rubble and crushing another against the wall. It swings again, killing another right in front of the leader. The baldy with the hammer jumps at the golem from behind and somehow destroys it. He turns to his leader, saying that he killed it, but suddenly groans in pain and collapses as Dantalia pulls a sword from his back. The leader watches in shock as the golem begins repairing itself, returning to its original form within seconds. Dantalia explains that killing a golem was easy if one destroyed its core, and even amateur adventurers could do it with enough knowledge. He says that if the bandits had worked together and stayed calm, they would have easily won. He asks what the leader would do now that the power dynamic had changed. The leader realizes that Dantalia looked completely different now. This was the real demon lord. But still, he didn't want to give up, wanting to survive no matter what. He thinks that he was in worse situations than this many times in his life. While reassuring himself that he would definitely get through this, no matter what trick he had to pull. He calls out to Dantalia and surrenders his weapon while saying that he had lost. He falls to his knees and asks Dantalia to kill him. Dantalia says that he understands while moving forward towards the leader. The leader hides his face, unable to hold his laughter. He calls Dantalia an idiot for falling to such an easy tactic. He wonders how Dantalia even thought that someone as weak as him could kill the bandit leader. He pulls out a hidden knife from his back while thinking that Dantalia was the one who was going to die. While walking, Dantalia hires a slime, looking at his remaining balance. The bandit leader counted Dantalia's steps until he was within range, promising to kill Dantalia. 3 more steps, then 2 more steps. But then Dantalia suddenly stops when there was only 1 more step left. The leader looks up, wondering why Dantalia stopped. Dantalia calls the leader and says that he sees right through the leader's intentions. Of course he does. He could read the bandit leader's every thought. Dantalia points and laughs at the bandit leader, saying that it was checkmate for him. The leader grits his teeth in fury, thinking how Dantalia dared to mock him even though it wasn't over yet. He jumps forward to close the distance between them, but before he could reach Dantalia, his leg gets pulled and he falls to the floor. When he looks back, a slime was stuck to his leg. He asks what was happening. Dantalia walks forward while the leader was distracted. The golem suddenly grabs the leader's hand, which was holding on to the knife, disarming him and crushing the bones. Dantalia says that everything went as he expected. He was glad that he had enough money to hire that slime. While laughing, he asks how it feels to have his pride and everything else be crushed by someone who the bandits considered weaker than them. He asks how it feels to die like this. The leader starts crawling back, terrified of Dantalia, wondering where it all went wrong. He thinks that he should have killed the demon lord right away when he had the chance. But then he thinks that it was even before that. He thinks that it was when he got the map of the demon lord's castle from that woman, or even before that, when he thought that he could challenge a demon lord. He understood now that he never stood a chance against Dantalia in the first place. Dantalia was truly a demon lord. Suddenly, Dantalia finds himself in the clouds. From beneath the clouds, he sees his father's face appear, asking him to steel himself. He asks why his shitty father doesn't just go to hell already. His father says that Dantalia's life would be worse off without him, no matter what choices he made from then on. Dantalia waves his hand, telling his father to shut his mouth and leave him alone. Everything turns dark and he hears a woman calling him Lord Dantalia, trying to wake him. His eyes spring open to the woman's face right in front of him. He asks what she was doing. She apologizes and says that he just didn't seem like he was waking up. She then pulls out a magic contract and says that she was going to cut to the chase. She says that she had loaned him 100 gold pieces of Libra 2 months ago, and 96 Libra added on top because of the interest due till date, for a total of 196 Libra. She says that she hopes he would repay her in full today. Dantalia wonders what was even going on. 3 weeks ago, he suddenly became Dantalia, a lowly demon lord ranked 71st out of 72 demon lords in the game he had cleared. Right after that, he got attacked by a group of bandits. He managed to eliminate them all by using everything he had. He fell back after finishing the bandit leader. The golem quickly moved behind him. Dantalia sighs a breath of relief. The battle was finally over. He notices that he had just completed the tutorial and leveled up. As a reward, he had to pick a skill. Since the tutorial was over, the skill he used before would not be available to him anymore, and he could only pick one of them, and that too only at level 1. That also meant that this was where the real game began. He didn't want to think about it until now, but he wonders if he would be stuck living as Dantalia from then on. As things stood, there was no guarantee that he could return to his world. He had no choice but to keep going. He had to choose the best skill he could right now, one that was best suited to him. After a while, he decides to pick the skill Apostle of Aphrodite, a skill that allowed him to see someone's status and their opinion of him. Although it looked like a simple mind-reading skill, among all the other skills, it was the most useful one for him. After selecting the skill, he leans back onto the golem, saying that he was tired. It felt like he was up for multiple nights. He tells the golem that he was going to rest for a while now. After climbing onto its hands, he tells it to let him sleep. The next thing he knew, he was already in his bed in a trashed room. The golem probably brought him here after he slept. He was hoping for all this to just be a dream, but he was still Dantalia and his memory was clear. He wonders how a demon lord even lived like this. Just then, a female voice calls out to him from behind. He turns around. The girl had just immediately appeared from nowhere. A girl with a gaze as cold as permafrost ice, she tells him that her name was Lapis Lazuli. Dantalia explains to her that he wasn't the one who borrowed money from her. Lapis tells him to forgive her rudeness, as she was having trouble understanding Dantalia's words. She says that it was undoubtedly Dantalia who borrowed money from the Chamber of Commerce 2 months ago. She pulls out the contract again to show him as proof. She wasn't budging no matter how many times he was refusing it. They had already been going back and forth with this banter for a whole week now. Before it was the bandits, now the debt collectors. He thinks that this world totally sucked. He wonders why he was supposed to clean up a mess left behind by the idiotic previous owner of the body. He wonders which idiot would even give a loan to the previous owner of the body. But then his eyes go wide as a sudden thought flashes in his mind. He asks if he could ask Lapis a few questions. Lapis says that he can. Dantalia asks what happens if he couldn't return the money. Lapis says that Dantalia would have to declare bankruptcy in that case. He asks what happens after he declares bankruptcy. She says that the Chamber of Commerce would take ownership of the Demon Lord's castle in that case, and then he would be asked for a few small requests from the Chamber of Commerce. She says that he doesn't need to think about it and should simply do as he was told. Dantalia says that he has one last question. He asks what day it was. She looks up at him confused, but she was frightened at what she saw. She keeps her composure while saying that she doesn't understand what he means. Dantalia repeats, saying that he was simply asking what day, month, and year it was today. She looks down again, apologizing, while saying that it was 17 April 1505. 6 days had already passed after his supposed repayment day. If interest continued to pile up, he would go bankrupt. Dantalia says that he understands now. He then calls Lapis by the nickname Lala and says that he has a proposal for her. He says that he wants her to lend him another 10,000 libra. In the imperial calendar year 1505, 20th of April, at the Kunkuska firm headquarters, a goblin runs through the halls, telling everyone to get out of his way. He was the miser goblin Torkel. He hands a document to a fairy while still running and asks her to send it to Her Highness Payman no later than 8 o'clock. He then asks what the status of the arrangement of ships looked like at Batavia. She tells him that it was going smoothly. He tells her to make sure everything was ready before dismissing her. He looks at his pocket watch, saying that he was going to be in trouble. He wonders what was going on for all executives to be summoned for an emergency meeting at a time like this. He bursts into the meeting room, apologizing. The man in the middle tells Torkel that he was late. He reminds Torkel that time was money for merchants like them. The man tells Torkel to take a seat quickly as he had wasted enough time already. He says that they were beginning the meeting now. The Kunkuska firm headquarters, where the 5th-ranked Demon Lord Malbus and the 9th-ranked Demon Lord Payman dwell as their guardians, was regarded as one of the best companies in the world. The one in charge of the organization was Ivar Lodbrok, one of the 3 ancient vampires of the demon world. Ivar tells Lapis Lazuli to explain the reason for abruptly upholding the meeting. Lala says that she understands. The executives sitting around the board ask if this girl wasn't a hybrid mix between a succubus and a human. They ask what someone like her was doing in an executive meeting, asking if she wasn't from a cursed bloodline. They ask why scum like her was allowed inside. Ivar orders them to quiet themselves with a shout. Torkel looks at Ivar, sweating profusely. Ivar settles down once again and asks Lala to continue. Lala tells them that the 71st Demon Lord Dantalia had made a request for another loan. Torkel grits his teeth, wondering if she gathered all of them here just for something like that. He jumps up, calling Lala a mongrel and asking if she was joking. He asks Ivar what this was even about. Ivar tells Torkel to calm down and tells Lala to tell everyone about the amount Dantalia had requested this time. Lala tells them that Dantalia had requested 10,000 libra without skipping a beat. All the executives' jaws drop simultaneously. 10,000 libra could be considered a national budget for a small country after all. Torkel stands up once again, saying that this was insanity and asking if this was even real. Lala says that it was real. Even she was skeptical when he had asked in the beginning. Dantalia repeats that he was asking to borrow an additional 10,000 libra. She asks what Dantalia means, as he already had a debt of 196 libra. Dantalia says that this was exactly why he wanted to borrow even more. Lala tells him that she really can't understand what he was saying. Dantalia asks her to open up and have an honest conversation and asks why she lent him money in the first place. He asks if he wasn't regarded as an incompetent demon lord in this world. Lala looks down, saying that she doesn't think that was the case. Dantalia rises from his seat while asking if she didn't think that he wouldn't be able to pay it back in the first place. He asks if she didn't want him to go bankrupt and turn him into her firm's lapdog. While crouching down right in front of her, he asks if this wasn't her true intention from the start. He asks if he was wrong about any of it. Lala gulps and says that it wasn't the case. Dantalia asks her to let him ask a different question in that case. He asks if she didn't come there under orders from the company to lend him money and get closer to him. Lala says that she did everything of her own accord. Dantalia laughs, asking if that really was the case, intrigued that Lala was answering him without any hesitation. He then moves back to the main topic and says that the reason she should lend him this money was because he would have to spend the rest of his life being her dog. In return for giving him 10,000 libra, he asks if it wasn't a good deal now. He asks what she thinks about it if a demon lord became a dog of her company for the rest of his life. He assures that she would surely get promoted. He gently pushes her chin up, looking into her eyes while asking if she would go along with this. Lala grabs his hand and takes it away from her face, saying that she understands. Torkel asks why Dantalia would ask for 10,000 libra when he can't even pay back 100. He says that this has to be some kind of trick. Ivar agrees and asks Lala to tell them more. Lala continues, but Dantalia had already told her what to say if they asked anything like this. She tells them that Dantalia had lost his mind, that he claims that there was a plague coming for their world, and he wanted to make a cure for it for the sake of his loved one. Torkel asks what she means by loved one. Lala says that it was about her. She says that she was Demon Lord Dantalia's mistress. The executives' jaws drop once again. They call her a horrible woman. Lala cuts them off and says that she approached Dantalia herself, all for the sake of becoming his mistress. The executives rage, asking how a low-ranking trash dared to become a demon lord's mistress. They ask for her to be executed immediately. She continues and says that she did it all to turn Dantalia into a loyal dog of their great company. Suddenly, loud laughter fills the room. While laughing, he tells the executives that a succubus, human hybrid, had not only made Dantalia a part of their company but also defied her own fate of being branded as trash, even offering her own chastity. And now she had become a demon lord's mistress. He laughs louder, calling the whole thing a masterpiece. He says that Kunkuska was a meritocracy. Normally, he wouldn't have lent any more money to an incompetent demon lord like Dantalia. However, this was going to be a special loan. He orders Lala to return to Dantalia and relay to him that Ivar was ready to give him 10,000 libra as he desired. Imperial calendar year 1505, May 3rd, at the city of merchants, Kairos, a merchant asks if he misheard what Lapis had just said. Lapis says that he didn't. She shows him a herb and says that she wants every single one of those herbs on the continent. The merchant asks if she was actually going to spend 8,000 libra to hire thousands of people for the herb. He tells her that the herb was nothing more than a normal weed. Lala tells the merchant not to concern himself with the reasons and tells him that these were instructions given to her by His Highness, the Demon Lord Dantalia. She tells him to proceed with her request as soon as possible. While she walked through the streets, they all stared at her with grins, thinking that this woman was spending outrageous amounts of money at the behest of a foolish demon lord. That Dantalia had actually lost his mind. They even talk about the rumors about Lala being Dantalia's mistress and call her a mongrel. They all thought that it was over for Dantalia. Back at his castle, on June 20th of the same year, Lala approaches Dantalia and stands beside him. She says that she has successfully secured the herbs Dantalia had requested, just as he ordered. She also confirms that storage facilities have been made and were being thoroughly guarded. Dantalia closes his book and says that Lala did a great job. She then asks what his true intentions were with this, remembering his face back when he asked for the additional loan. She asks why he claimed that an epidemic would befall them soon if it was just to borrow the money. Then why use 80% of it to buy worthless herbs? Dantalia places his book on the table and asks Lala to have a guess. Lala says honestly that she had no clue what he was up to. He picks up a glass of wine and says that he has no choice. Firstly, he says that he wanted to congratulate her with a toast while extending the glass towards her. Lala says that she doesn't drink. Dantalia asks if she was truly refusing to do what he especially wants her to. Dantalia apologizes while walking forward. Dantalia says that she doesn't need to make such a serious face while handing her the wine glass. He tells her that she did a good job and toasts to their future together. Lala drinks from the wine glass but stops halfway, asking what Dantalia just made her drink. Dantalia starts laughing and says that it was a drug made from the herb he had her gather. He asks if she liked the taste of it. Lala, with a serious expression, asks if Dantalia was joking right now. Dantalia says that he wasn't kidding at all. He says that in order to secure the 10,000 libra from the firm, she must have told the firm that Dantalia had gone insane and wanted to make a cure for the plague. He asks if this doesn't make sense, since he made the cure for his loved one. He then asks what the current date was. Lala says that it was the 20th of June. She asks why he keeps asking her that. Dantalia ignores her deep in thought. He tells her that it was about time while reaching for his pen. While writing something, he tells her that starting tomorrow, he didn't want Lala to come to the castle for some time. Instead, he asks her to go to a place he had written on the paper and observe for a while. She grabs the piece of paper, asking what any of it even meant. Dantalia says that she will understand once she goes there. He says that he was aware that Lala had too much on her plate lately, and that this was a good chance to go relax and explore some places. June 24th, at the Kingdom of Sardinia, in a traveler bathhouse named Syracuse, Lala undresses and ties a towel around herself while thinking that she can't understand Dantalia at all. While walking into the baths, she wonders why he would send her to a place like this, wondering what could even be there while looking around. She gets embarrassed after seeing the other women looking at her and sinks into the water in a corner. She remembers back to the note Dantalia had given her, with the name of the bathhouse and symptoms of some kind of disease. She wonders if he was really predicting a plague, but quickly pushes away the thought, saying that it was not possible. She sinks down until her nose, thinking that there was no way someone like Dantalia had that kind of power. But she had been having an uneasy feeling the whole day for some reason. Just then, she hears a woman scream nearby. She quickly goes up to the woman and asks what happened. The woman says that the child in front of her suddenly collapsed. The little girl was breathing heavily on the ground. Lala tries to help her while asking what was wrong with her. The girl says that she was in pain. Lala asks where it hurt exactly. The girl says that her whole body hurt. Lala notices that the girl was burning up and asks her to hold on as she was about to take the little girl to the clinic right away. But then she notices the black bruise appearing on the little girl's neck. It was one of the symptoms that Dantalia had foretold. Lala's eyes go wide as she examines the little girl for further symptoms. Just then, she hears multiple people yelling about others who had collapsed. She asks what was happening at the clinic. The doctor says that anyone who was still alive was to be given a bed to rest in. There were already 30 patients in a very short time. Lala sat outside, gloomy, thinking that this should have been impossible. Just then, the doctor asks if Lala was feeling okay. He says that all the people in the bathhouse, except for her, had already died. He tells her that she should hurry out of there. He tells her that she should leave the town while she still could. Lala notices the same bruise on the doctor's neck as well. She looks down at her own hands, remembering the weird drug that Dantalia made her drink, the one made from the herb she had gathered. Although she didn't want to believe it, there was no other explanation. Although she hated to admit it, everything Dantalia had said was true. The plague was upon them. July 16th, at the Kunkuska. A fairy flies as fast as she can through the hall while holding onto a letter. She comes to a room where Torkel was and knocks while apologizing for causing an inconvenience. Torkel barks at her, calling her an idiot, and says that he was currently meeting with Lady Payman. He turns to Payman and quickly apologizes for the rudeness. Payman says that it was fine and says that he must have some urgent matter to attend to. She tells him not to worry about her and to take care of the business first. Payman was ranked 9th as a demon lord and was known as the Demon Lord of Beauty and Charm. Torkel apologizes once again and asks what the fairy was there for. The fairy flies in with the letter and says that they had just received an urgent message from the headquarters. Torkel says that he was going to kill her if it was just some trivial matter. But while reading the letter, his expression goes dark. It was about the epidemic that had broken out, with a mortality rate of over 80%. Payman notices his face going dark and asks what was happening. Torkel gulps and reads further into the letter. It detailed Dantalia having created a miracle medicine to treat the disease, and Lappies monopolizing the herb from all over the continent under Dantalia's order. The price of the herb, which cost Dantalia 8,000 coins, was now estimated to be between 1–3 million. The letter ended with an order for all executives to assemble for an emergency meeting. Payman gets impatient and extends her arm, asking to see the letter for herself. Torkel gives it to her without question. While reading, she focuses on Dantalia's name and the estimated value of the herbs he possessed. Torkel calls her name after seeing no change in her expression. She says that the situation was rather interesting. Back in Dantalia's castle, Dantalia looks outside the window, looking at a thunderstorm. Just then, the door behind him bursts open. Dantalia says that she was back quicker than he had expected. He asks if she was able to relax and stretch her wings while calling her his Lala. Seeing her not answer, he asks what was up with her pale look. He says that he thought hot tubs were her thing. Lala cuts him off and asks if he knew from the very beginning. Dantalia feigns ignorance, asking what she means. Lala tells him not to act like he didn't know and says that an epidemic had started in Syracuse, and the herb he had her collect could be used to make a miraculous cure for that disease. Dantalia says that he doesn't have the slightest idea what Lala was talking about. While laughing, he asks if he wasn't saying that from the very beginning. Lala's eyes go wide. He was right. He had told everything to her since the very beginning. She had just refused to believe it. In the game Dungeon Attack, the story started from 1515, a time after the plague had spread across the world and the world had turned dark. According to the plot of the game, the plague had started in a hot spring town by the name Syracuse in the summer of 1505, and only a year later, the cure, the black herb, was discovered. Until 1505, the herb was widely regarded as just a weed. Dantalia just used the knowledge he already had. It was when he saw the date on the document from the firm that he realized that it was the year 1505. He thinks that this was all thanks to Lala. He asks what the firm thought. He says that it should currently be in huge turmoil, like a disturbed hornet's nest. Lala says that an emergency meeting was called just before she arrived. Dantalia walks up to Lala, asking why she wasn't at the firm. He asks why she came to him instead. He tells her not to answer, as he already knew why. He says that she must be thinking that her life would be in danger if she went to the firm now. He says that the people at the firm would surely think that it was simply impossible to predict a plague like this, and that someone must have intentionally spread the disease. Who would do something like this, and for what reason? The only answer was that it must have been Lala. He says that she had seduced a demon lord and taken the position of his mistress, telling the firm that she would turn him into the firm's lapdog. Then by chance she was at the place where the plague had started, and finally buying thousands and thousands of the special herb. All of these situations suggested that Lala must have been the mastermind. He says that she should have been aware of this herself, hence why she came to him instead of going to the firm. Lala was left speechless. She stumbles a few steps back away from Dantalia. Ever since Lala was born, she had been regarded as a hybrid, a crossbreed, a mongrel, and everything in between. She had worked incredibly hard to get where she was now, to get back at everyone. But everything she had built up until now, everything was so easily taken away. She wonders who she was even standing in front of. Although she knew it was Dantalia, it wasn't the same person she had known back then. She wonders if he was really the same incompetent demon she had known all this time. Dantalia says that his dear Lala only had one path left for her. He tells her to kneel before him and become his servant. If she did, he would offer her a taste of real power. He says that he would put her in charge of all transactions relating to the cure. Lala looks up at him, stunned. Dantalia, with his arms wide, says that the plague was going to ravage the world, and that many, if not most, of the people would die to it. Death did not discriminate whether the person dying was someone in power or a child. He says that even those who despised Lala for being a crossbreed would desperately look for ways to survive, and many would want to do business with Lala. He says that a half-human, half-demon who had been discriminated against her whole life would be in control of the fate of hundreds of thousands of lives. He says that this was true power and asks what she would do while extending his hand towards her. Lala chants that she shouldn't take his hand over and over, but for some reason her heart wouldn't stop pounding. Before long, the rain outside had stopped. The confused expression on her face turns into a smile. She quickly kneels in front of him and says that she understands. She says that from then on, her life belonged to His Highness, the demon Lord Dantalia. She kisses his arm. And Dantalia says that since his dear Lala was giving him everything, he was going to give her something in return as well and grant her the greatest view. While pushing a trolley through the hall with a dark expression, Lapis wonders how things ended this way. Her life now belonged to Demon Lord Dantalia, and a week had already passed since that event. She knocks at his door, telling him that she brought his meal, but she gets no answer. She excuses herself and goes inside. She had noted a few things in this 1 week working under him. Her master, the Demon Lord, either reads books found within the castle all day or sleeps. She walks up to him as he twists around in his sleep in a chair, still unable to understand what he was thinking at all. Half a year ago from this day, Lapis had approached Demon Lord Dantalia for her own goals. While she was introducing herself and her firm, Dantalia stopped her and told her to shut up. With disgust, he says that he couldn't care less about the name of a filthy mongrel. He was scummier than she had thought, but as she had expected when she showed him money, he had jumped at it right away. After that, she started spreading information that there was treasure in the Demon Lord's castle, and bandits started approaching her for the map of Demon Lord Dantalia's castle. She wanted Dantalia to experience some hardships so he would come crying to her. However, he had far surpassed her imagination and now held the lives of more than half of the continent. And yet, he was able to sleep peacefully. They had already received letters from several countries regarding the sale of the medicine, and as they expected, the firm had been staying quiet throughout this. Meanwhile, Torkel knocks on a massive iron door calling for Ivar. Ivar tells Torkel to come inside. His room was filled with antiques, but it was completely dark. Ivar calls out to Torkel from a dark corner of the room, lighting a candle in front of him before asking Torkel to take a seat. Before Torkel could even sit, Ivar asks for the current situation. Torkel tells him that it couldn't be any worse and that the plague was spreading rapidly. He says that it was only a matter of time until it spread through the entire continent. Ivar says that according to his analysis, more than 30% of the population was set to die. Torkel jumps in surprise, saying that there was no way that was true. Ivar asks if he had ever told a joke before, looking at Torkel with a sharp gaze. Torkel says that he hasn't. Ivar tells Torkel that all their lords and partners had suspended all trades with the firm from then on. Torkel asks what that means, before smashing his hand on the table while saying that it was all because of that mongrel Lala. He asks what happened to her. Ivar says that he hadn't been able to make contact with her. He says that she must have planned to betray the firm from the very beginning. According to the reports, Lapis was seen at the place where the plague began, and she bought up and monopolized the herb that could have been used as a cure months in advance. While laughing, he says that not even gods can predict a plague, and that it was clearly not a coincidence, and that it was definitely a man-made plague. Ivar asks who could be the mastermind behind all this. Torkel says that it must be Lapis. Ivar immediately disagrees, saying that a little girl like her wouldn't have the power to do something like this. Torkel asks if that meant it was Dantalia. Ivar says that if Dantalia was capable of something like this, then he wouldn't have ended up in his current position in the first place. Ivar says that they were just small fry. Both Dantalia and Lapis were only pawns. Torkel asks who in their right mind would do such a thing, and if it was really possible for someone to intentionally create and spread a deadly infectious disease. Ivar says that there was only one person capable of this. Torkel gulps, his words stuttering. He asks if Ivar was saying that it was caused by the brilliant necromancer, the immortal monarch, the goddess of black magic and diseases, the 8th-ranking demon Lord Barbados. Torkel thinks that it makes sense. Barbados had always hated humans. She had started many wars and had destroyed numerous countries. And if the plague continued, the damage done to the humans would be far greater than the damage done by demons, and if things went really wrong, humans might even go extinct. Ivar says that in the end, this was the true nature of a demon lord. Torkel asks what Ivar planned to do if Barbados was truly the one behind all this. Their firm had maintained a good relationship with numerous demon lords, and thanks to the demon lord's backing, the firm had grown as large as it was now. And if they were planning on taking on a demon lord, they would need to be prepared and would need strong, undeniable evidence. Ivar says that they already have solid evidence. He says that they will have Dantalia and Lapis tell them everything. Ivar tells Torkel not to worry, as he had already taken action. He says that he would make the two of them regret ever trying to stand up to him. Just then, a lady arrives from behind Torkel, calling Ivar. Ivar laughs, saying he wasn't expecting her to be this quick. He sets fire to the scroll that he was just given, laughing as the words on the scroll burned away. Ivar then tells Torkel to go to Demon Lord Payman and tell her what they knew. He says that the only one who could stand against Barbados was Payman. Torkel says that he will do as he was told to, because even he knew that Payman and Barbados were always on bad terms, and Payman would spare no effort in cooperating in this matter. Ivar starts turning into a shadow while laughing and asks if those brats really thought they could stand up to him. Torkel sees that Ivar had disappeared, but the lady who had come to deliver the scroll lets out a gasp behind him. Ivar's voice comes from behind her, saying that he can't wait. He bites into the lady's neck with his fangs, while saying that he would make Lapis Lazuli a part of his doll collection first. Back at Dantalia's castle, Lala tries to wake Dantalia up, saying that they had something urgent to take a look at. Dantalia groans, asking what could be more important than sleep. Lala says that Dantalia had received a summon. Dantalia asks what that means. Lala says that there was a meeting, one which was never initiated so suddenly. Ivar laughs while saying that the demon lords who rule the world were all now gathering. Lala tells Dantalia that Walpergis night was going to be held. The sky is filled with musical humming and magical trails. One of the witches asks her sister what their next client is like. The blonde witch says that they were hired by Demon Lord Dantalia. She asks if Dantalia wasn't the one who fell in love with a half-succubus, half-human. The green witch calls it forbidden love and says that it was very romantic. She says she's sure he must be a wonderful gentleman. The blonde witch tells the others not to pry too much into his personal life while they're on the job. They were almost at Dantalia's castle. Lala tells Dantalia to hurry outside. She calls him once again after not getting a reply, but Dantalia tells her to shut up. He asks why he has to go and what this so-called Walpergis night even is. Lala looks at him and asks what kind of demon lord doesn't know about it. She asks if he has never participated in one before. Dantalia says that he hasn't. Lala explains that Walpergis night is a major event where the demon lords and their followers gather. Together, they address issues that go beyond national borders to maintain order in the world. There is no set schedule for when it's held, and nearly all demon lords attend. Dantalia says that she just gave him even more reason not to want to go. Lala says that the topic of this meeting is the plague, and that the location is Niflheim. She adds that the Kunkuska firm's headquarters is also located there, which means the one who initiated Walpergis night is probably the firm. Dantalia currently holds the monopoly on the miracle cure for the plague. If he doesn't attend, they'll come up with reasons to crush him by force. Dantalia curses and asks why he has to deal with problems one after another. But if what Lala says is true, then it would be dangerous if they used force against him. Dantalia says that he understands and agrees to attend Walpergis night. He wonders what the worst that could happen is, since it's supposed to be a place for discussion. He thinks he might even be able to persuade the other demon lords to reach a resolution. Dantalia stares at Lapis with a grin, thinking that the money he spent acquiring her is already paying dividends. He then asks how they're even supposed to get to Niflheim. It would be better for the firm if Dantalia didn't attend, so they would surely try something while he was on the way. Lapis looks at her pocket watch and says that she has already made proper arrangements. She says they should be here any moment now. Right on cue, they hear giggling and humming above them. The witches sing as they approach Dantalia's castle. Dantalia sees a little girl jump from the sky straight in front of him, landing gently as the others follow behind her. She places an arm over her chest and thanks Dantalia for using their services. She says that they'll be responsible for escorting him on his journey. She introduces them as the Berber sisters. A cold sweat rolls down Dantalia's cheek as he looks at them in surprise. He whispers to Lapis, asking if these are really just kids and whether they'll be all right. Lapis tells him not to judge a book by its cover. She explains that once a witch makes a contract with a demon lord, they stop growing for all eternity. The fact that they look so young is proof that they're extremely talented. Dantalia asks if that's really the case. Lapis says that the witches are probably at least 200 years older than her. Dantalia clears his throat and apologizes for his rudeness. He asks them to raise their heads and sincerely thanks them for accepting his request. The witches begin blushing at his words, and the expression on Lala's face changes. Dantalia notices and asks if something is wrong. The blonde witch says that they should depart quickly. She uses her magic to attach a comfortable chair to the back of her broom, then asks Dantalia to get on. He asks if it's really all right. The witch tells him not to worry about it at all. As they fly, she thanks him once again for choosing their services. She says that the weather and wind are on their side for this journey to Niflheim and asks him to just enjoy the ride. Before long, they arrive at their destination, Hermes Square, inside Niflheim. The blonde witch says it must have been tough sitting for 6 whole hours. She hopes he's fine after such a long flight. Dantalia replies that it was comfortable and that it must have been difficult for the witches as well. He invites them to join him for dinner as thanks. They blush again and ask if he's serious, saying they'd be honored to join him. The blonde witch says she knows the perfect place nearby. Dantalia asks her to lead the way. Lala asks what Dantalia thinks he's doing. Dantalia asks if Lala isn't tired from the journey. He says he won't literally die if he doesn't at least get a drink. Lala's expression remains serious. Dantalia asks if she's worried that the firm might try something. He tells her to stop worrying. No one in the city would be stupid enough to attack a demon lord. Lala nods and says she understands. The witch leads them to a nearby pub. Dantalia remarks that it's quite lively. The witch says that's only natural since this is a place where anyone can enjoy themselves regardless of class or race. She points ahead and says they're almost there. Just as Dantalia is thanking her, he hears a man roaring angrily behind him. An old man is on the ground, being beaten while apologizing profusely. The man beating him complains that the alcohol is horrible, the chairs are too hard, and the customer service is terrible. He asks if the old man is really trying to make money with such shabby facilities. He continues beating him as a crowd gathers. Dantalia calls out to Lala and asks who that idiot is. She tells him it's the 72nd ranked demon lord, Andromalius. Dantalia had always wondered what the 72nd demon lord was like. He grabs a random person's drink, takes a sip, and lifts the glass high. Lala's eyes sharpen as she asks what he's planning to do. Dantalia drops the glass and says that this trip is going to be far more fun than he expected. Because Dungeon Attack was a game about the 72 demon lords who ruled the world, and right now, it was the year 1505. Exactly 10 years before the start of the game. And the demon lord who destroyed the protagonist's village, the one who created the hero, was standing right in front of Dantalia, Andromalius. Andromalius looks back at Dantalia. He sees Dantalia staring at him and asks what he's looking at. Dantalia smirks. That expression enrages Andromalius even further. He starts walking toward Dantalia, asking what he's smiling about. Dantalia calls out to Lala and asks if Andro has any forces protecting him right now. Lala says that he shouldn't. She explains that Andromalius spends most of his time and money at a casino in Niflheim. She adds that Andro is infamous for using his position as a demon lord to torment people. Even among demon lords, he's considered a disgrace. Dantalia says that he understands. As Andromalius approaches, he begins to look at Dantalia more carefully. His outfit doesn't look ordinary, then he notices Dantalia's horn and the half-succubus woman standing beside him. He had heard plenty of rumors about Dantalia. Lala quickly tells Dantalia to refrain from doing anything rash. She reminds him that conflicts between demon lords come with many complications. Dantalia asks if that's some kind of common law. Lala confirms it. She explains that demon lords stand above nobles, high-ranking beings with the power to destroy the world. Because there are 72 of them, and because of the diversity of issues that arise, they follow common law instead of a codified one. These laws exist to maintain order. She adds that demon lords are forbidden from fighting each other. If Dantalia lets his emotions get the better of him and starts a childish fight, he will be punished. As she finishes speaking, Andromalius is already standing face to face with Dantalia. Andromalius asks who the hell Dantalia thinks he is. Dantalia replies that it doesn't matter who he is. He says it makes him sick to see Andromalius acting almighty in front of the weak. He tells Andromalius to get out of his sight. Andromalius asks if Dantalia wants to die. Dantalia says he'd like to see him try. Andromalius lunges forward, his fist ready. Lala sees it coming and tries to stop him, but Dantalia raises a hand, signaling her to stop. He wanted Andromalius to hit him from the beginning, but Andromalius's fist stops just before it connects. Andromalius bursts out laughing. He says he's been hearing some strange rumors lately about someone of noble birth mingling with common folk. Even worse, doing so with a human-demon crossbreed. He says he never expected such an idiot would take one of those as a lover. And he definitely didn't expect to encounter someone like that here. Dantalia thinks that Andromalius isn't a complete idiot after all. He asks what's wrong with taking Lala as his lover. Andromalius replies that he stopped himself just in time from breaking Dantalia's jaw. He asks if Dantalia really thought he wouldn't know about common law. He says that if he hadn't realized Dantalia's identity, he might have fallen right into his trap. He laughs and asks if the provocation was deliberate. Then he asks if Dantalia is stupid. Andromalius walks past Dantalia and turns his gaze to Lala. He asks if she's the one who enticed the demon lord. Calling her a filthy rat, he says that at least she's easy on the eyes. But then he adds that she reeks of the rotten stench typical of the lower class. He pokes her chest and asks how she managed to make an idiot like Dantalia fall for her. Trailing his finger downward, he says that he's grown so curious that he'd like to try her out himself. Lala tells him to stop. Andromalius's expression changes. He turns back to Dantalia and says that the common law only applies to demon lords. He raises his fist with a wide grin and punches Lala. The crowd gasps in shock. He says that attacking anyone who isn't a demon lord is completely allowed, that he can beat Dantalia's woman into a pulp, use her, and return her afterward. He boasts that he'll take good care of her even if she's filthy. Dantalia stands behind her, completely unbothered. Not getting any reaction from Dantalia, he turns to the crowd, asking if they are seeing this. He says that he wouldn't show any mercy to anyone who dares to oppose him, not even women or children. He says that all of them should kneel before him and worship him. He asks if the others also want to end up like the mongrel Lala. He says that he would use force if he had to. The people start avoiding his gaze. He laughs, satisfied, then looks at Lala again, lifts his foot and stomps on her. Lala groans in pain and Andro starts laughing, saying that this feels great. Dantalia has a slight frown, but he still doesn't move. Andro looks at Dantalia, asking how he's feeling now, seeing his girl being beaten right in front of him, while Dantalia can't even do anything about it. While laughing, he looks at the crowd again and tells them to chant his name. He says that he is the one who stands at the top of the world, Demon Lord Andromalius. Dantalia starts laughing behind him. Infuriated, Andro asks what's so funny about this. Dantalia says that Andro has been talking quite arrogantly for a while, yet he wonders who would actually follow him. Andro asks if Dantalia is being a sore loser. He says that he'll just overpower them by force if they don't follow him, just like he did to Lala. Dantalia smirks, asking if there is even anyone in the world whom Andro has overpowered by force. Andro asks what Dantalia is getting at. He quickly turns around and sees Lala getting back on her feet, wiping her face. Andro's blood vessels start bulging on his forehead as he tells Lala that she should have stayed on the ground, asking if she wants to die this badly. Lala looks at him without fear. Andro asks how a nobody like her dares to look at him like that. He asks how she dares to defy him while smacking her in the face again. Lala straightens herself once more and looks at him again. He tells her not to get cocky while punching her and calling her an insect. He says that she should be kneeling in front of him and asks if she still doesn't know who he is. Dantalia thinks that Lala is someone who lived in the slums as a crossbreed since childhood. She was used to being beaten up. Andromalius's weak fists wouldn't hurt her. While continuing his punches, he tells her that he is a demon lord, the king of the world. Meanwhile, Dantalian grabs a knife from a nearby table, saying that he's borrowing it. Lala is still standing, taking all the punches. Andro starts losing his breath, wondering how Lala isn't even flinching while being punched by someone like him. Lala looks at him with a smug expression, as if she isn't even bothered. His mind starts spiraling, and he decides that he's going to kill her no matter what. Dantalia calls out to Andro and swipes the knife across Andro's face, slashing his eyes and shocking everyone around. Andro screams at the top of his lungs, crying about his eyes. Dantalia says that Andro doesn't need eyes, since he clearly can't even see the strength of the person he chose to pick a fight with. Lala asks why Dantalia did this and whether he realizes what this means. Dantalia places a hand around Lala's waist and pulls her into a hug, telling her that she did well, making her blush. Dantalia says that he thanks her from the bottom of his heart for giving him this opportunity. He steps back and tells her to hold out her left hand. Lala is too stunned to react. He says that he wanted to give her this on a more fitting occasion, but decided to do it now while she's shining more beautifully than anyone else. Lala looks down at her hand and sees a ring on her ring finger. She's caught off guard and is about to ask what's happening, but Dantalia grabs her hand and tells her not to say anything yet. He tells her to just watch. He raises her hand high and calls out to the people of Niflheim. He declares that he is the 71st ranked demon lord Dantalia and that the person beside him is the one he loves. He says that even though they differ in status, it doesn't matter. Even if it's forbidden for them to be together, he loves Lala no matter what. He says that the man in front of them hurt the person he loves deeply. He asks if the people think such injustice should be forgiven. He says that he's been given the perfect chance to make a nuisance of a demon lord disappear, and he has no intention of missing it. He roars that he cannot forgive Andro, even if he is a demon lord. The bystanders and the witches can't believe what they're hearing. Dantalia is breaking demon lord law for the sake of his lover. He calls Lala his dearest and asks her to step back and let him handle it, whispering that this is where things get even more interesting. He turns to the people and says that they've all been subjected to such an unreasonable demon lord. He asks how long they plan to submit to Andro. He asks if they're truly okay with this. The people begin clenching their fists. Dantalia continues, saying that if justice truly exists in this world, then Andro deserves to face judgment first. Andro shouts at Dantalia to shut up and listen. He asks what Dantalia means by judgment. He says that they're only one rank apart, that Dantalia is just a small fry getting carried away. He says that Dantalia violated common law by attacking him. He screams that Dantalia is the one who should face judgment. He orders someone to seize Dantalia, saying that Dantalia violated the law. He threatens to kill everyone if they don't comply, calling them fools and saying they have no right to judge him. Dantalia walks toward Andro and asks why he's still acting arrogant, even after getting everything wrong. Andro asks what Dantalia is talking about. Dantalia addresses the people of Niflheim, declaring that in the name of the demon lords, he passes judgment on Andro. He says that he'll leave the verdict to the will of the people. He explains that demon lords only exist because of the people, but Andro was simply born a demon lord. He says that Andro doesn't understand true power. Instead of fulfilling his duties, Andro wasted his days drinking and gambling, then raised his hand against the weak. He asks what kind of demon lord that makes him. He says that the world doesn't exist for Andro to rule, but for people to live in. He asks whether, for their land and their future, it makes sense to let someone like Andro live. He tells them that this is their chance to stand up. He calls them the heroes of Niflheim. Andro roars at Dantalia to shut up, telling the people not to listen and ordering them to capture him. Dantalia laughs, asking why Andro is panicking so much, saying that he looks desperate. He asks if it's because of the small injury or because Andro can no longer see. Andro screams at him to shut up repeatedly. Dantalia says that he understands now, saying that if someone killed Andro right now, he wouldn't even know who did it. He says it loudly enough for everyone to hear. Andro screams for him to shut up again. Then he's suddenly stabbed in the back. Andro turns around, asking who did it. It's the old man who was beaten earlier, but Andro can't see it. Dantalia grabs Andro's shoulder, leans close, and whispers that everything that happened today went exactly according to his plan. He says that he has to thank Andro for this. Andro asks what Dantalia is talking about, but Dantalia doesn't answer. Instead, Andro hears footsteps closing in. He orders them to kill Dantalia, looking around frantically, but no one listens anymore. His expression changes as he asks what they think they're doing, begging them to stop and stay away. Meanwhile, Dantalia walks back to Lala. He looks back at Andro and says that he reaped what he sowed. He says it's a classic case of well-deserved karma. He declares that it's over and that they're leaving. Lala and the witches glance back at the crowd, who tear Andro apart while he begs for mercy, until he's dead. After walking for a while, Dantalia says that he's tired and apologizes that dinner with the witches will have to wait until next time. The witches look disappointed but understand, telling him to get some rest. The blonde witch says that she'll personally guide him to his lodging. Dantalia nods, then asks if one of them isn't missing. The blonde witch looks back, surprised, asking where Beatrice wandered off to again. She apologizes, saying that Beatrice has a habit of wandering. Dantalia says that it's fine. He adds that there's one more thing he'd like to ask of the Berber sisters. The blonde witch tilts her head, wondering what it could be. Meanwhile, high in the sky, the black witch remarks that this wasn't what she expected at all, calling it quite a show. She says that she hopes his next show will be just as big, if not bigger. Meanwhile, at the other end of the city, in the firm's headquarters, Torkel walks through the hall. Walpergis' night was just the next day. Torkel hadn't been able to contact Sir Ivar for almost a week now. He goes to Ivar's room and calls out to him. He slowly opens the door and peeks inside, asking if Ivar was back yet. He walks inside toward a bunch of numbered coffins. Ivar wasn't back. Torkel wonders where Ivar had disappeared to. Just then, he hears a little girl's laugh from the ceiling. The black witch Beatrice was sitting in the window high above the coffins. She asks if Torkel had been keeping proper watch over the firm while she was gone. Before jumping down, she lands gently on the floor. Torkel immediately asks where she had been all this time, while calling her Sir Ivar. She says that she went to see Lapis and Dantalion with her own eyes. She says that she observed them really well while laughing loudly. Torkel asks if she found something out, eager to learn more. She says that she learned nothing as they didn't say anything about the plague. However, she says that she witnessed something very interesting at Hermes Square. Torkel asks what it was. She admits that she underestimated Dantalion a little. However, Dantalion was still lost in the throes of love, meaning his weakness was Lappy's. Beatrice tells Torkel to update her on the situation with Lady Payman. Torkel says that Payman had said she would support them and wouldn't spare any effort to help. Beatrice laughs while opening an empty coffin box. She goes inside it and closes the door from within. Moments later, the coffin starts glowing purple and a soul leaves the box and travels to a box labeled with number 1. The door is pushed open from within this time. Ivar comes out and tells Torkel to convey everything he was about to say, word for word, to Lady Payman. He says that it had been hundreds of years since he had looked forward to the next day this much. He tells Dantalion and Lappy's to prepare themselves as he was about to pay them back with interest. 24 hours later, it was the day of Walpergis night. The streets were filled with high-ranking demons and demon lords. Guards lined the streets all the way up to a castle. They announced that the demon lords are arriving and ask the others to make way. Casual demons look on with wide eyes as the first carriage arrives. As soon as the carriage stops, a bunch of masked people line up outside. Demon Lord Payman thanks them for welcoming her while giving her hand to the nearest person. The men say that they were waiting for Lady Payman's arrival. She asks if the masked men have finished making arrangements with Ivar. The masked man says that everything went smoothly. She says that it was nice to hear. She then says that she doesn't see any familiar faces yet and asks if she arrived a little too early. An old man tells everyone to make way for the next demon lord's arrival. Payman turns back to see crazed horses thundering toward her. The people start scrambling out of the way. The horses stop near the red carpet, leaving a trail of dust behind them. The person inside kicks the carriage door open and complains that her butt hurts from sitting for so long. She asks why it suddenly started smelling like shit. She was the 8th-ranked demon lord Barbados. Her expression grows angrier as she spots Payman in front of her. She points at Payman and asks if it wasn't the noble screwing hoe herself. Payman narrows her eyes and says that Barbados's taste remained as questionable as ever. Barbados shoots back, saying that Payman was the one who slept with a centaur, and that she heard Payman was quite loose down there. Payman brings her fan up to her mouth and says that Barbados showed indecent behavior even in a situation like this. She asks her to start acting like an adult. Then she adds that with a body as underdeveloped as Barbados's, it must be really hard to find a partner, which meant Barbados would probably stay childish forever. She asks Barbados to stop taking out her inferiority complex on others. Barbados says that she was going to chop off that hanging mass of fat on Payman's chest right then and there. But then they notice another carriage arrive and stop going back and forth. The old man announces that another demon lord has arrived and tells everyone to make way. Barbados looks back, asking who it was this time. Dantalion asks if Lala was all right and tells her to hold his hand if necessary. Lala says that she was fine. Everyone quickly realizes that it was Dantalion after looking at Lala. Lala sees Barbados looking straight at her. She was about to tell Dantalion about the other demon lords, but Dantalion says that he knows. He says that it seems like everyone there knew exactly who they were as well. He tells Lala not to be afraid. With the other 2 demon lords staring at him, Dantalion says that they should go inside. On Walpergis night, 30 minutes before their arrival, Lala says that she doesn't want to go to the event with him after all. Dantalion asks what she was even saying and whether she was feeling nervous now, as it was unlike her. He reminds her that there was a ball before the meeting and asks who his partner would be if it wasn't her. He asks if she wants him to go alone. Lala looks at him with a nervous expression. Dantalion asks if she was mad about what he did last night when he declared to the world that Lala was the person he loved. He says that he had no choice. Lala looks down with a blush. After a while, she says that he was wrong. She says that she was only worried about Walpergis night, as it was an event only demon lords and some high-ranking demons were permitted to attend. She says that it would be rude for someone like her to set foot there. Dantalion asks if that was what she was worried about this whole time. He tells her that she was now his official fiancée. He tells her not to be afraid and to stand by his side with confidence. He says that the 2 of them were the most talked-about couple in the world right now, and that they shouldn't disappoint those who were looking forward to seeing them. Lala gulps and nods, wondering what she was even thinking. She had thought the whole lover thing was just an excuse to borrow money. Depending on how the meeting went, even a war could break out. Even the smallest thing that happened there could affect the lives of tens of thousands of people. And then there was the plague. And the incident that happened yesterday, which drew even more unwanted attention to Dantalion. Yet somehow when she looks at him, he seems so calm and collected. She wonders how it was possible. As they arrive at the event, they notice Demon Lords Barbatos and Payman outside. Dantalian suddenly starts grinning. Before stepping out, Lala tells him to wait and let her go out first. Raising his hand, he says that it was fine and that they should start showing off right away. He tells her to take his hand and asks if she was ready to go inside. Lala looks at him, stunned, then jumps out, saying that there was no need for it. Dantalian smirks, saying that she was as cold as ever. He glances back at the other demon lords standing in their path. Payman and Barbatos were both staring at Dantalian and Lala. Dantalian walks up to them confidently and greets both of them, introducing himself as the 71st ranked demon lord Dantalian. With a furious look and a clenched fist, Barbatos tells him not to talk to her like he knew her, calling him low-ranking trash. She says that she was already in a very bad mood. Dantalian bows deeper while apologizing. He says that he was still a young demon lord and had never seen or interacted with greater demon lords like them before. He says that he didn't want to pass by without greeting them and sincerely apologizes if he offended her. Barbatos raises a brow while looking at him but doesn't say anything. She turns around and leaves, telling him to stop it and saying that it wasn't a big deal. Lala wonders what was even happening, seeing Barbatos leave without saying anything. Barbatos wonders how a bottom-tier demon lord like Dantalian wasn't scared at all, even with her and Payman nearby. Even demon lords ranked only a few numbers below them would stand stiff with fear in front of them. She takes a quick look back at him with a wide smile, saying that he was quite interesting. Payman notices Barbatos leaving and giggles to herself, saying that it was annoying loud enough for Dantalian to hear. She slowly walks toward Dantalian and says that she hopes her words don't offend him. She says that she had been hearing a lot about him lately. She glances at Lala and asks if she was the one. Lala gets on one knee and greets Payman, saying that she was a servant of Dantalian Lapis Lazuli. Payman asks if that was the case while closing her fan. She walks up to Lala, saying that she doesn't need to be this formal. She lifts Lala's head with her fan and leans closer, saying that Lala had such a young and beautiful face. Dantalian sees what she was doing and asks what Lady Payman might be talking about. He says that no one could ever dare compete with Payman's beauty. She says that it was very sweet of him to say that. She walks toward him, saying that now that she had a better look at him, he was rather handsome himself. Dantalian says that he was grateful to receive such praise. She leans closer, her chest bumping into him, and whispers that she would love to have another long conversation with him in private. She then turns around, waving her fan, saying that she will see him inside. Dantalian waits for her to leave before grinning and saying that it was quite entertaining. He looks at Lala and asks if they can go inside for real this time. But he notices that Lala has a weird look on her face. Lala says that she had been brushing shoulders with death almost daily after meeting Dantalian. They make their way inside the mansion. It was already filled with demon lords from all around the world. Dantalian says that the venue was pretty nice. Then he calls Lala and asks if she had also noticed something. Lala says that she has. Dantalian thinks that there was no running away now. It seemed like everyone there was paying attention to him and Lala. Although they looked indifferent at first, they were all watching them. Dantalian feels like a rare animal that just walked into a trap. Now the question was whether they were really that much of a spectacle for all of them to look at him and Lala like this, or if they were looking at him and Lala like ravenous beasts do before they devour their prey. Dantalian turns to Lala and asks if all the participants there were connected to the firm. Lala says that she doesn't know. Only upper management in the firm would have access to customer information. However, according to the list of the participants, about 40% of the participants belonged to Payman's faction. Likewise, 40% belonged to Barbatos' faction. The remaining 20% either belonged to Lord Melba's faction or were unaffiliated. Dantalian says that he understands, while wondering how many of these people were actually the dogs of the firm. He thinks that if he were the company, he wouldn't do something like this unless he had every possible advantage. He starts thinking about an escape plan in case something went wrong. Just then, all the chandeliers and lamps blow out. The room goes completely dark and the participants start asking what happened, wondering why the lights went out. Just then, a flicker of blue flame shows up on a lamp. Soon after, the whole room is illuminated by a bunch of blue lamps. Everyone looks toward where the lights came from, to the sound of a stick hitting the ground over and over. The old man addresses all those who had participated in Walpergis night. He says that it was an honor for him to host this event. His name was Ivar Lodbrok of the Kunkuska firm. With a grin, Dantalian asks if the old man was really Ivar. Lala says that he was indeed Ivar, the richest man in the demon world, an ancient vampire and the owner of Kunkuska. And because of Dantalion, she had to betray Ivar, her former employer. Dantalion couldn't hide his smile, seeing that the boss himself had appeared in front of him. Ivar suddenly stops after noticing Lala. He had been waiting for this ever since she had betrayed him. He thinks that despite being a mongrel, she had outsmarted him and even became the lover of a demon lord. He says that she was a horrible woman. But this was where he would witness Lala's downfall. He loudly declares that Walpergis' night was now officially opened. Barbados cuts him off, calling him an old man, and asks why he had been yapping for so long. She drinks a little more from her bottle after getting their attention, before continuing. She says that she had a long journey and asks the old man to let her rest a bit. She says that it was no fun having a stinky old man with bad breath as their host. She says that she feels sick looking at him and asks him to get something to drink, as she couldn't stand his boring hosting at all. Dantalion cheers for Barbados to keep going internally. Ivar says that he understands what Lady Barbados was saying, however he couldn't stop. Barbados cuts him off again and asks if the old man was challenging her. Ivar bows a little, saying that he wasn't challenging her at all. He looks to the side, expecting someone to step in. Right on cue, Payman steps in, asking Barbados to know her place. She says that she was ashamed to be a member of the same race as Barbados. She says that Ivar had prepared a wonderful place for the event without question. While drinking the last drops of rum from her bottle, Barbados asks why the whore was coming at her again. She throws the bottle at Payman's feet. It smashes into pieces on the ground in front of Payman. Barbados tells Payman to go back to her house and play with her centaurs and not to act all high and mighty here. Payman asks why Barbados was always so vulgar. She asks if it was because Barbados looked like a kid. She says that Barbados seemed to have the mind of a child as well. She says that adults understand a thing called etiquette, but it was something Barbados could never comprehend. Barbados clenches her fist, asking who Payman was calling a child. Payman laughs, asking if Barbados was angry. Barbados' eyes start flaring with fury. But before the catfight could get even worse, someone tells the two of them to calm down. He says that the two of them should be quiet for a bit now. It was the 5th-ranked demon lord, Marbas, the demon lord of nobility. Payman nods with respect. Barbados leaves while clicking her tongue. Marbas apologizes to Ivar and asks him to continue. Ivar's grin widens, seeing that even Marbas was on his side. Lala notices Dantalion's hands shivering next to her, but it wasn't fear, just excitement. Ivar once again declares that Walpergis' night was opened. After seeing everything unfold in front of his own eyes, Dantalion now knew the real power of the higher demon lords, and that he was only a low-ranking demon lord. Even if he made a small error, he would be ripped to shreds easily. If he were in Ivar's shoes, he would have gathered all the high-ranking demon lords along with all their attendees, all on his side, and watched Dantalion and Lala get devoured by the demon lords, all while he stayed in a safe position. But Dantalion was feeling an uneasy sensation. Something was missing. Ivar glances at Payman, signaling her to start. Payman doesn't waste any time. She announces that she had to discuss something before the main topic tonight. She says that it was something everyone must know. Ivar, doing his best to hide his smile, asks Payman what she was saying. Marbas also seems interested now. Payman turns around, looking at the crowd, saying that everyone must already be aware that, this morning, the 72nd-ranked demon lord, Andromalius, was found dead with his body horribly mutilated. Some of the demons look surprised as they hadn't heard the news. Payman says that she has some useful information regarding that matter. She says that Andromalius was murdered. The demons gasp in unison. Ivar acts like he had never heard this news before. Dantalion stays composed. Marbas steps forward, asking if what Payman just said was actually true. She assures him that she was telling the truth and that she even had solid evidence. Marbas asks if Payman knows who the murderer was. Payman says that the culprits were the people of Niflheim. Marbas snaps back, asking what Payman meant. Payman continues, saying that someone was pulling the strings from behind the scenes, inciting the people into killing Andromalius. She says that the whole thing was done on purpose. And more importantly, she says that the one who did it was with them in that room right now. Lala's expression goes dark. Dantalion tells her that she doesn't need to panic. Payman was clearly trying to crush him there, otherwise she wouldn't have bothered giving such a long-winded speech. Ivar and Payman were working together, and they knew exactly what had happened yesterday. But he wonders how and when. They met Andromalius out there by chance. No one should have known about it. He wonders how long they had been watching them. The only possibility in his mind was that he had been watched from the very beginning. But if that was the case, then there was another question. From where was he being watched? He stares at Payman's behavior for any tell. He sees her glancing somewhere in the middle of her explanation. Dantalian understands what was going on. Ivar, with his best act, asks who in their right mind would encourage people to kill a demon lord. Payman says that the one who used clever words to trick the people and encourage them to kill Andromalius was the 71st ranked demon lord, Dantalian. She points her fan straight at him. The whole room stares straight at Dantalian. After hearing what Payman said, people start saying that they can't believe it, that a demon lord killed another of their own kind. Ivar asks the crowd to quiet down. Marbas asks Payman to let him confirm this, as if what she said was true, it could shake the order of the entire demon world. Payman says that everything she said was nothing but the truth. She accuses Demon Lord Dantalian of committing the crime and proposes a hearing be held. Ivar couldn't control his smile. He had witnesses prepared. In his eyes, there was no way for Dantalian to get away. Payman then asks if Dantalian had any objections. Ivar was waiting for Dantalian to object so he could embarrass him. However, Dantalian says that he has absolutely no objections. He says that everything was as Payman had said. Both Payman's and Ivar's eyes go wide in surprise. Payman asks if she heard wrong. Dantalian says that she didn't. He says that he was the one who incited the people to kill Andromalius. All the suspicions and doubts that he had finally come together. Ivar's goals were clear. It was to join forces with Payman, using the Andromalius incident as an excuse to destroy him and steal the black herb cure for the plague. And they even knew everything that went down last night, although it was just a coincidence that he went somewhere where he came face to face with Andromalius. So how would they know? It was because they were watching from the very beginning. And the one who had been watching him had disappeared yesterday. Beatrice of the Berber sisters. Then what reason would they even have to watch him if they had Payman on their side in the first place? There would have been no need for them to go through all this trouble. It would have been better for them to attack head-on, especially since Dantalian was just a low-ranking demon lord. So why wouldn't they just do that? Maybe they couldn't. Why would they go through all this trouble of having a meeting and going through all this acting on the night of Walpergis? Dantalian saw the answer clearly. Thanks to Payman, ever since he came into the venue, he noticed the stares of those around him. But Payman and Ivar were pretending not to be looking at Dantalian when they weren't. What he saw in them was discomfort. Who else could cause them to look like this? It went back to the matter of the plague. It was impossible for someone to predict it. It was only natural for them to think that someone intentionally created the plague. And the first person that came to mind, capable of doing something like that, was someone Payman must have had on her mind the entire time. The demon lord of black magic and disease, Barbados. Payman and Ivar must have assumed that the mastermind behind the plague was Barbados. They must think that Dantalian was merely Barbados' puppet. They were watching him to figure out his relationship to Barbados. And if they attacked him outright, they feared a war breaking out against Barbados as well. That was why they got him there, a place with many demon lords and nobles in attendance. They thought that by attacking him here, he would confess everything about his connections to Barbados. However, with so many demon lords here, Barbados would likely deny any connections to him. And then she would no longer be able to help him. All that would be left was to bring him to justice for bringing the plague and monopolizing the cure for it. Dantalian thinks that the old man was quite clever. That he was quite different from the opponents he usually dealt with. Undoubtedly the smartest man Dantalian had encountered thus far, but Dantalian couldn't care less about that. If they were after Barbados, then it meant that Barbados wasn't one of them. All that was left now was Marbas. But Marbas was one of the highest-ranking noble demon lords. If he knew, he wouldn't have bothered going through all this trouble. He would question Barbados directly. In other words, his opponents were just Ivar and Payman. They picked a fight with him, thinking the two of them would be enough to take care of someone like Dantalian. He praises them for their effort, but he wasn't one to let things go according to their plans. Ivar asks if Dantalian was agreeing with everything Payman had accused him of. Dantalian says that it was exactly what he was saying and asks if Ivar had a problem with that. Ivar stutters his words, saying that he has no problem with it. He wonders what Dantalian was even thinking. Dantalian says that he had reasons for doing what he did and asks them to hold the hearing as they planned. Ivar steps forward, ready to offer himself as the judge for this case. But Dantalian cuts him off, saying that he has one more thing to say. Ivar was pretending to be fair, but in reality he was holding this entire meeting for his own advantage, watching from his special seat. Dantalian wanted Ivar off that chair, as it was a real eyesore for him. Dantalian calls Lord Marbas and says that this was a dispute between demon lords, and that it was only natural that a demon lord would act as judge. Dantalian asks Lord Marbas, who was the highest ranking among them, to take that role himself. Marbas thinks for a few minutes before looking down at Ivar, saying that what Dantalian said was true, that this matter was too much for Ivar to handle. Marbas says that he will be taking over as the host for now. Ivar says that he understands while nodding, gritting his teeth as beads of sweat form on his face. Marbas then asks if Payman was also okay with this. Payman nods, unbothered, thinking that she could take care of a low-ranking demon kind on her own. Marbas steps to the middle, saying that he will be entrusting himself with the role of judge for this matter. He calls out to Dantalian first, as he was the accused, and says that if Dantalian wanted to prove his innocence, he had to step to the center. Dantalian says that he would do so with confidence. Before leaving, he asks Lala about something he had asked her to do. Lala says that it was ready whenever. He tells her to watch him closely as he was going to give her a signal. He understands, wondering why he was laughing even in this situation. Dantalian walks forward, standing in front of Payman, inwardly asking her to enjoy this game of wits. As Dantalian walks toward her, Payman thanks him for requesting a hearing. Dantalian says that it was no big deal as he also wanted to have a nice long chat with Lady Payman. For Dantalian, this was like a medieval duel, a duel to the death. Only one walks away without losing a lot. Marbas says that they will be starting the hearing, and after hearing both sides' stories, the decision would be made by majority vote. Dantalian thinks that majority vote sounds like something Ivar would have come up with as well. He looks around at the other demon lords and nobles. According to Lala, 40% of the people here were from Payman's faction. He was weak in terms of raw strength and influence. He was nowhere near Payman. The only power he had here was the knowledge from the dungeon attack and the skill called Apostle of Aphrodite, the skill he used back in his castle during the tutorial. Back in the tutorial, it was max level, so he could even read others' minds. But after clearing the tutorial, it reverted back to level 1. Now he could only see others' lickability toward him, but for him, it was more than enough. Marbas says that he was giving Payman, the accuser, the right to question Dantalian first. Payman quickly says that she understands. Payman repeats her question, saying that he was at Hermes Square the previous day. And despite knowing that the other person was a demon lord, Dantalian skillfully convinced the people to kill Andromalius. She asks if she was wrong. Dantalian shrugs, saying that she was correct. Then he lifts a finger and says that, to be precise, although she may be aware of it, before the people killed Andromalius, Dantalian had slashed Andromalius' eyes, blinding him. His statement makes Marbas raise a brow. The other demons ask if Dantalian had gone crazy, and if he had forgotten the common law. Dantalian continues and says that even if the people hadn't killed Andro, regardless of whether he was a demon lord or not, Dantalian would have ripped out that trash's heart and cut his head off. Payman's eyes go wide in surprise. The crowd goes completely silent. Lala starts sweating cold sweat. Multiple people's lickability toward him drops significantly. Ivar thinks that Dantalian was a fool and wonders if he had completely lost his mind. Payman asks if Dantalian was calling another demon lord trash. She tells him to be more careful with how he speaks. Dantalian says that he can't do that. He says that he would keep calling Andro trash over and over again like the trash Andro was. He says that Andro deserved to die there. The other demons ask what Dantalian was even saying, completely shocked. They ask if he was insane. Their lickability keeps going down. Payman shouts at him, saying that he was going too far. She says that Andromalius was still one of them. Dantalian says that he doesn't agree with Payman's opinion. He says that trash like Andro wasn't one of them. That he was a disgrace to all demons. He says that even death wasn't enough of an end for him. Dantalian says that he hopes the demons of hell continue violating that trash's soul for all of eternity. He then looks at Payman and says that he honestly was sick of her protecting trash like Andro. He drops all honorifics in front of her name. Payman looks at him with fury, her favorability dropping by 40 in an instant. She asks how he dared to call her by just her name and tells him to change the way he speaks immediately. They could hear tens of hundreds of rings notifying of lickability going down all around him. Even Marbas' favorability toward him drops by 10. Marbas takes a step forward, saying that Payman was right, that this was a noble place, and asks Dantalian to watch his mouth. Dantalian, who had a grin on his face, quickly hides it and apologizes to Marbas, saying that he couldn't control his emotions. He was laughing inwardly, saying that everything was fine for now, as acting like a madman wasn't his goal. He glances behind him, wondering if he had given Payman a good enough hit. From the very beginning, his true goal was Demon Lord Barbados. He sees her lickability toward him rising up to 50. Since the winner would be decided by majority votes, and 40% of the people here were on Payman's side, 20% on Marbaz's side, and the remaining 40% on Barbados's side, getting Barbados on his side was absolutely crucial. So he answered all of Payman's questions in a way that got on her nerves. He wonders how Barbados was feeling right about now. She probably wanted to deal a blow to Payman after their last exchange, but Dantalian was crushing her instead. He looks back at Payman, saying that it was showtime. Dantalian suddenly apologizes to Payman. He asks her to forgive his rudeness. He also extends his apology to everyone else present there as well. The people ask what he is doing, apologizing now. Dantalian says that he didn't mean any disrespect. He says that he was an immature man who couldn't control himself. He says that he was merely the 71st Demon Lord, with no achievements, no title, just a nobody. And yet he says that he would never raise a hand against a weak elderly man. While clutching his chest, he says that he would never kill a child for not greeting him. The crowd looks shocked again. Marbaz asks what Dantalian is getting at. Dantalian smiles while looking down, as if he caught a fish with his bait. He asks if the others weren't aware that the number of people Andromalius killed in Niflheim was no less than 54. Some people in the crowd already seem to know the fact. Dantalian continues, saying that among them 12 were children. He says that Andromalius got a kid drunk and then hit him with a whip over and over until the kid died. He says that there was a person crying, saying that her daughter had been violated and her body was thrown into the sewers by Andromalius. He says that once the injured were added, the number of victims reached 327, and that was just the cases he was aware of. The entire room stays quiet after he stops talking. Payman is left shocked. Marbaz asks if what Dantalian said was actually true. Dantalian says that it was all true, as it was all investigated by his vassal already. Just to be sure, he had Lala look into this that very morning. He was glad that Andromalius was a real piece of shit. Of course, he exaggerated some of it a bit too much, but the dead men tell no tales. Dantalian continues, saying that yesterday he heard an old man screaming in pain. He happened to turn around and met Andromalius's eyes. He says that Andromalius immediately started a fight just for looking at him. He says that Andromalius approached him and found out that he was a demon lord. He says that Andromalius then proceeded to attack, but he didn't strike Dantalian. He struck the person Dantalian loved. He says that Andromalius stomped his loved one on her stomach. And when she got up, he punched her in the face over and over many times. Dantalian calls Payman, her face now covered in sweat, teeth clenched together. He asks what she thinks he should have done in that situation, seeing his loved one subjected to such unreasonable violence. He asks if she wanted him to simply stand by and watch. Payman grips her fan tightly, trying to say something, but she is lost for words. Of course, Dantalian knew it would be like this. Unlike the other demon lords, Payman was especially friendly to humans in the game. Unlike Ivar, Payman most likely acted out of pure concern for those suffering from the plague, believing that he and Barbados were the culprits. And she just couldn't forgive them for that. Her sense of justice was commendable. But that same sense of justice was being used as her weakness, and in this case it was a double-edged sword. From then on, it was Payman's public execution. He then says, loud enough for everyone in the room to hear, that Andromalius was scum who had no right to be called a demon lord. And if things had continued as they were, the number of victims would have continued to increase. He says that what they truly needed to focus on was the innocent people who were killed for absolutely no reason. He then turns to the crowd, asking them whether or not a bastard like Andromalius deserved to live. The crowd is silent. Dantalian walks up to Payman and asks if she still considers Andromalius to be one of them. Even if the image of all demon lords would have been tarnished because of one scumbag, he asks if she would defend him until the very end. He asks her to give him a clear answer right away. Payman thinks that this wasn't how it was supposed to be, that she would never associate herself with such a man. She is about to open her mouth to say something. But then they hear sharp laughter from the other side. Both Dantalian and Marbaz quickly turn toward Barbados, who couldn't control her laughter. She says that Dantalian was right. She says that the 71st Demon Lord said it perfectly, clapping as she speaks. She says that she would like to thank him for getting rid of a pest like that on behalf of all of them. She turns to her faction behind her, asking if they don't feel the same. Everyone is too stunned to answer as Barbados continues to laugh. Ivar is sweating profusely. Lala wonders how he is pulling this off, watching the tide of the battle change. Barbados says that she had always wanted to kill Andromalius herself, but he had done a good job avoiding or hiding from her. She says that she is glad that piece of trash is dead now. She thanks Dantalion once again while clapping. She then stops and asks what is wrong with the others. She asks if they are really going to defend that scum's actions. With a terrifying look, she turns back and asks if they are going to do something stupid like that. The demons shudder in fear before starting to clap one by one. Barbados says that it is a blessed day today. She asks what would have happened if the others found out that some of them defended that piece of trash during Walpergis night. She says that the other demon lords and nobles would have laughed at them. Those who were trying to stay neutral also join in the applause. Ivar thinks that the situation is getting worse. As the other demons all start to applaud Dantalion, Barbados says that she is sure the people of Niflheim are praising Dantalion by now. She says that he broke the common law for a person he loved and got rid of a filthy demon. She says that he is a hero. She asks if it isn't brilliant for a demon lord to be a hero. She asks if Paimon doesn't think the same. Paimon's face twists suddenly. Hearing the claps, she begs them to stop, inwardly asking why they are clapping. Dantalion was the one who violated the common law, yet they were all clapping for him. This wasn't how she saw it going. After letting the applause go on for a while, Marbaz's expression hardens. He tells them all to stop. He says that the applause was an intentional disruption of the hearing and asks them to not let it happen again. The crowd immediately stops clapping. Barbados says that she understands. However, she also says that she was genuinely impressed. She says that among the lowest-ranking demon lords, there is usually nothing but trash, and that it had been a while since someone useful appeared. She says that she had no intention of disrupting the hearing at all. Marbaz keeps his eyes narrow, looking at Barbados before turning back toward Paimon. He tells her that they are wrapping things up now. Paimon tells him to wait, her face completely covered in sweat. Marbaz asks if there is still something Paimon wants to discuss. Paimon says that she isn't done questioning Dantalion yet, her voice high, almost on the verge of crying. Marbaz looks at her with a serious face and tells her that the two of them have known each other for more than 500 years. And that he knows her as well as she knows him. Yet he says that he cannot understand why Paimon, of all people, would defend Andromalius. He says that normally she would be the one to despise such people. Paimon wonders why nothing is going her way. She looks back almost instinctively to Barbados, who is staring at her with a smug look. Paimon wonders why she is making such a face, and why she is laughing at her. She looks back at Dantalion, wondering if they aren't the real villains here, her eyes flaring with rage. She drops to one knee in front of Marbaz, leaving him surprised. She asks him to give her one last chance, gasping, pupils twitching. Marbaz studies her face for a second before telling her to do as she likes. Dantalion had expected Paimon to act like this from the beginning, which is why he had asked Lala to look out for his signal. He gives her the signal behind his back. As soon as she sees it, Lala turns around and walks through the crowd toward the exit. When he turns back, he notices that Paimon is out for blood this time. She starts by addressing all the noble guests of Walpergis night and says that she hasn't told them everything yet. The crowd listens carefully, wondering what more there could be. She says that they all must be aware of the current plague on the continent, the plague that suddenly appeared one day and spread rapidly across the land. The death toll is large and continues to grow. She says that this plague was actually spread intentionally. The demons ask what she means. Ivar's grin returns to his face. She says that the plague was spread by one of them. She tells them that the culprit responsible for the plague was Dantalion. This was the part for which Dantalion had thoroughly prepared for. The part about Andromalius was an unwanted appetizer. Now they were getting to the main dish. Marbaz looks at Paimon and says that she must surely have verifiable evidence to back it up if she was going so far as to make such an accusation. Paimon coldly says that she has all the evidence. Ivar starts tapping his fingers, thinking that Paimon seems to have finally regained her composure once again. He grins wide, thinking that there was no way they could lose now. Paimon turns to the crowd and says that the truth was that the plague had taken many lives, both human and demon alike. But the good news was that there was a cure for the plague, a medical herb called the black herb. She asks who it was that first realized that this herb could be used to treat the plague. She says that it was Dantalion. She asks if it wasn't strange that Dantalion bought up every single bit of black herb available before the plague hit. The demons ask what she means. She says that she just can't understand Dantalion. He not only knew exactly when and where the plague would come from, she asks how he was already aware of how to cure it too. She asks how Dantalion knew how to cure a disease that hadn't even appeared when he bought the ingredients. She says that the answer was simple, that Dantalion was the one who spread the plague in the first place. The crowd asks if that was even possible. Payman tells them that just like her, Dantalion had a full-time consultant at the Kunkuska Trading Company, and it was through that consultant that he bought all the black herbs. She says that they could prove it without a single omission, how Dantalion acquired the black herbs. As soon as she finishes her part, Marbus looks at Dantalion with a sharp look before calling Ivar and asking if everything that Payman said was true. While acting pitiful, Ivar nods his head and says that he was afraid to say what was true and what was a lie. He says that he was unsure if he could make such a decision in front of Marbus. However, he says that he could provide the evidence necessary if he was commanded to. Marbus asks if Ivar could provide the evidence right then and there. Ivar says that he can if Marbus wishes so. A smirk forms on Dantalion's face as he sees Ivar's shitty acting. Ivar wonders why Dantalion still has a smug look, even though there was no running away for him now. Just when he opens his mouth, someone comes through the door, apologizing for interrupting in the middle of the sacred Walpergis night. The guard tells them to make way for him. Marbus asks what was going on and tells the guard to explain himself. The guard falls to his knees and says that they had just received a report that the Kunkuska firm's headquarters had been attacked. Dantalion's grin turns into a wide smile. Ivar asks what the guard means and asks him to repeat himself. The guard says that according to the messenger, there was smoke rising from the top floor of the Kunkuska firm headquarters after what sounded like an explosion. Ivar starts sweating. The top floor was where he kept his longtime collection. Ivar apologizes to Marbus and asks to be allowed some time to see for himself. Marbus asks Ivar to raise his head and says that he understands the situation. However, he was only giving Ivar 15 minutes to deal with it. He says that normally he wouldn't have interrupted a sacred meeting like this. Ivar thanks Marbus for his generous consideration before rising up and pushing through the demons toward the door. Barbatos laughs at him, telling the others to look at him running out in a panic. Payman grits her teeth, then notices Dantalion leaving as well and asks him to hold on. She asks where he was going. Dantalion tells Payman to have patience inwardly as her turn was about to come as well. He turns around and says that he was just going out for some air. He tells her that he wasn't going to run away and asks her not to worry. While going out, he deliberately bumps into a lady with golden hair from behind. Payman continues to grit her teeth in anger. Outside, Ivar calls out to Torkel. Torkel comes running. Ivar asks what was happening. Torkel says that he had no idea himself. Ivar says that they don't have much time and asks Torkel to send the remaining soldiers to the headquarters. Torkel says that he understands and asks what Ivar was going to do. Ivar says that he was going to check the situation from the observation deck, as they should be able to see it from there. He curses out loud, saying who would do such a thing on Walpergis night of all days. They had targeted the headquarters since most of his guards were stationed at the event. He wonders what he was supposed to do if the intruders found or damaged his collection. He struggles to climb the stairs in that old body, and says that he was going to change into a younger body as soon as the meeting ended, and that he would seriously make whoever attacked him suffer for making him go through all this trouble. As soon as he gets to the observation deck, he sees the smoke coming from his headquarters. Dantalion says that he knew Ivar would come there. Ivar looks at Dantalion, confused. Dantalion says that Ivar should be able to see into his room from there with his powers. Ivar wonders what was going on and what Dantalion was doing there. 10 minutes ago, the little blonde witch asks if there had been a signal yet while flying high above the Kunkuska firm headquarters. Her sisters ask if they were really going to do this. The blonde witch says that they will since it was a request from Dantalion. Last night after Beatrice had disappeared, Dantalion had asked for a request from the Berber sisters. The blonde witch asks what it was. When he told them the plan, they were all surprised. They ask why he wanted them to attack the Kunkuska firm headquarters and if he was really being serious. He says that he was and that they were no longer unrelated to this either. The blonde witch asks what he means. Dantalion tells them that Beatrice had probably already been turned into a doll by Ivar. With a serious face, the blonde witch says that if what Dantalion said was true, she wasn't going to forgive Ivar at all. The green witch asks if what Dantalion said was actually true. The blonde witch says that they would find out soon. She tells the others that there was no need to be afraid, as even though he was ranked 71st, it was still an official request from a demon lord. And if Dantalion was right, they would know what happened to Beatrice as well. Just then, they see a flare going up near the mansion where the demon lords were gathered. It was Lala shooting the flare. The blonde witch tells her sisters to get ready while using a spell, saying that they were getting started. A little later, after coming face to face with Dantalion, Ivar wonders what Dantalion meant by saying he knew he would come here. He wonders if this was all Dantalion's doing. He looks around, thinking that Barbados had to be there somewhere as well, but then calms himself down, thinking that they wouldn't do anything stupid in the middle of a meeting. Dantalion walks up, asking why Ivar was panicking so much. He says that it was only him there, just him and Ivar. Dantalion says that he just wants to have an open and honest conversation with Ivar. Ivar wonders what this means. Ivar says that he can't believe it and asks if Dantalion was the one who attacked his company. Dantalion asks if it wasn't obvious. Ivar's eyes go wide seeing Dantalion admit it so fast. Dantalion tells Ivar not to worry as he only did all this to talk to him. Dantalion says that he had no intentions of destroying Ivar's company. He says that if he didn't do all this, there wouldn't have been an opportunity to get a moment alone, away from prying eyes. He says that he was sorry for damaging Ivar's company a little. Ivar grits his teeth, calling Dantalion a filthy rat in his head, wondering if Dantalion took him for a fool. He wonders what Dantalion even wanted to talk about since Dantalion was already finished. He promises to completely ruin Dantalion no matter what it took. He finally opens his mouth, saying that there was nothing to talk about. He says that he would simply submit that information as is, as instructed by Lord Marbus. Dantalion says that it would be a shame to end the meeting like that, especially since it was the first time they had met. Ivar says that he also feels the same way, saying that it was very regrettable. Dantalion asks if that was the case. He says that then Ivar should surely understand how Dantalion must be feeling right now. Ivar wonders what Dantalion was saying now. Ivar says that he was just an old man and that he couldn't possibly imagine what a demon lord might be thinking. Dantalion asks what he means by old man, then sees what he means. Ivar looks confused. Dantalion then asks if Ivar wanted to become Dantalion's subordinate. Ivar's eyes go wide, wondering if he heard wrong. Even if Dantalion was a demon lord, he surely didn't expect someone like Ivar to submit to someone ranked 71st. Ivar says that Dantalion must surely be joking. Dantalion asks why he would joke about that and says that he was very serious. He asks if Ivar wanted him to repeat himself and asks if Ivar wanted to be his subordinate once again. Ivar starts laughing. Dantalion, after seeing him laugh for a while, joins in. The two of them start laughing together like madmen. Then Ivar suddenly snaps, saying that Dantalion should surely be shitting him. Dantalion says that Ivar finally showed him his true face. Ivar says that Dantalion must be kidding, calling him a brat while gasping like a dog. Dantalion says that they should settle it now. He looks back and tells someone to come out. As soon as she comes out of the darkness, Ivar shouts her name. It was Lapis. Dantalion asks what Ivar thought about the reunion after such a long time. Ivar roars that he had been waiting to see her. He says that she surely hadn't forgotten the firm's rules. He says that at Kunkuska, traitors paid the price with their blood. He says that Lapis would definitely regret betraying him. Lala says that Ivar was the one who taught her to use whatever means necessary if it was for her goals. She says that Dantalion promised her to give her the best view, and she says that she was confident that with Dantalion, she would be able to see just what she wanted. And that was why she does not regret betraying the company in the slightest. Dantalion asks if Ivar heard that right. Ivar grunts, calling the Great View a joke, and says that the two of them were finished. He says that they would lose everything after this. He says that all he needs to do now is provide the evidence regarding the black herb. Dantalion laughs, striking a nerve in Ivar. He asks what Dantalion was laughing about and asks if he had gone mad. Dantalion says that he was perfectly fine and that he was more worried about Ivar. Ivar asks what Dantalion means. Dantalion reaches into his pocket and pulls out a few strands of golden hair and asks if Ivar knows what they were. Ivar stares at the hair, eyes wide and confused. Lala wonders what the glowing threads were. Dantalion says that he wasn't worried about the old body Ivar was using now. He says that he was actually worried about the one located in the frigid lands in the far north, deep within a cave. Dantalion says that he was talking about Ivar's real body. He asks if Ivar understands now. Lala's eyes go wide in surprise. Ivar's cane drops to the floor as she asks how Dantalion knew about her real body. Ivar's body starts trembling in fear. While laughing, Dantalion thinks that there was no way he wouldn't know about Ivar's true identity, since Ivar Lodbrok was in the game. She was the vampire heroine who fell in love with the main character. In the game, she was betrayed by the demon lord she served and sealed herself in an ice coffin so she would never be used again. She had begun living life while moving her consciousness around her living dolls. Dantalian was surprised at first too, since Ivar was completely different from the heroine who appeared in the game. Dantalian continues his threat, asking what would happen if a lovely young lady's limbs were torn off by a vicious monster in a place like that. Or for example, if Dantalian were to give a small signal and a disaster were to suddenly fall upon that girl. Ivar couldn't wrap her head around how Dantalian knew her real identity. There was no one who knew about it, and the thing Dantalian was holding looked exactly like her hair. Of course, it wasn't really Ivar's hair. He had just borrowed it from the blonde lady before coming there just to be safe. But he never expected an improvisation to be this effective. Now all he needed was one last push. Lala from the side couldn't understand anything, but given Ivar's reaction, she thinks that it must be true. Dantalian says that he was going to say it one more time. Ivar obediently looks at him. Dantalian asks if Ivar was going to serve him. Ivar stumbles back a few steps, wondering why this was happening to her. She says that she hates this. She didn't want to serve a man like Dantalian. She starts chanting that she hates it over and over, saying that it must be a dream and that it's not really happening. Her mind was in turmoil. Then she explodes into a shadowy flare while roaring and sending shadows in all directions, before going straight toward Dantalian and Lala. Dantalian braces himself. When the shadows dissipate, Ivar was behind Lala, telling Dantalian not to move a step, holding her hostage, her talons at her neck. She says that if Dantalian or Lala moved even a little bit, she would die. Dantalian just frowns a little before asking what Ivar was doing. Ivar tells Dantalian to shut up and not to move. She says that she was serious, that if Dantalian even took a step, she would kill Lala. Ivar says that they were going to make a deal now. She asks Dantalian to release her main body in return for Lala's safety. Ivar laughs nervously, thinking that the life of the woman Dantalian loved was now in Ivar's hands. She thinks that Dantalian's weakness was Lala, since he even killed a demon lord for Lala. She thinks that Dantalian would have no choice but to accept the deal. She would have preferred to kill Dantalian right there, but there would have been a problem if something were to happen to her main body. Unfortunately, she had expended nearly all the magic this old body could earlier. This was the only thing she could do now. She swears to kill Dantalian once she gets her body back. While she waits for Dantalian to release her body, Dantalian says that he understands and a smile forms on Ivar's face. But then Dantalian tells Ivar to kill Lala. Ivar asks what he means. Dantalian asks if Ivar didn't hear him and says that he didn't care at all and asks her to kill Lala. Ivar wonders if she was hearing things or if Dantalian really just said that. Dantalian laughs, asking if this wasn't supposed to be a deal. He tells Ivar to remember that a deal could only be made when either both parties were equal or one side was extremely strong. He asks if she doesn't know something that simple, even though she was known as the head of Kunkuska. Ivar starts stammering her words, asking if he would really let Lapis die. Dantalian once again says that he doesn't care and asks Ivar to be done with it. He looks at Lala and asks if she wasn't okay with it. Lala stares into his eyes for a few seconds before saying that she understands. She says that she was ready to give her life for the sake of Dantalian. Ivar falters, wondering if Lala really just said that. She wonders what these two were even saying. Dantalian walks toward Ivar, saying that Ivar was wrong from the very beginning about the plague. He says that Ivar thought that Barbados was the mastermind and Lapis was the executor of the plan, and that Dantalian was just a simple pawn. He asks if that was what Ivar thought. Ivar starts stuttering her words. Dantalian asks if Ivar finally figured it out. He says that she was right. The mastermind behind all of it was him from the start. He says that Ivar was completely wrong. Ivar lets go of Lala, and Dantalian says that he can't believe that Ivar lost her judgment over a petty desire for revenge. Ivar falls to the floor on both knees, wondering who she even messed with. She knew that she couldn't beat him. She slowly looks up, wondering if this was truly Demon Lord Dantalian. Dantalian says that there was no need to be scared. He says that although he asked her to work under him, he didn't want to change anything and wanted her to continue as she had been until now. However, he asks her to just carry out some of his requests once in a while. And of course, she had no right to refuse. And if she refuses, he brings the golden hair in front of him, holding it on both ends and snapping it in half. He asks if she understands what he said. He then says that he was going to start off with his first request immediately. He whispers something into Ivar's ear. Ivar starts breathing heavily, saying that she can't do something like that. Dantalian asks if they should head back inside now. While leaving, he says that it wasn't actually him who spread the plague at all. He says that he leaves the rest to Ivar. Inside the venue, Marbus looks at his pocket watch, saying that it was almost time. Ivar stumbles in, looking down at the ground. Both Barbados and Payman stare at him as he walks in slowly. Marbus asks Ivar about the situation at the headquarters and asks if he would resume Walpergis' night. Ivar says that she has no objections, still looking at the ground. Barbados bursts out laughing, asking why the old man looked so depressed. She asks if his castle being destroyed took all the courage out of him. Marbus tells Barbados to quiet down. Barbados puts her tongue out, saying that she understands. Marbus says that they were now waiting for Dantalion to arrive. Dantalion enters, saying that he was there. Payman grits her teeth at the sight of Dantalion's smug face. Marbus says that he was resuming the night since everyone was there. Payman says that she was glad that Dantalion came back and didn't run away. Dantalion says that he already told her that she had nothing to worry about. She says that Dantalion was spouting nonsense again. She points at Ivar and orders him to hurry and show them the evidence. Everyone in the room stares at him, but Ivar doesn't move. Payman snaps at him, asking what he was doing and telling him to hurry. Ivar, with an almost whisper-like voice, says that there was no evidence to show. Payman's pupils shrink after hearing that. The crowd looks confused. Payman starts sweating and asks what Ivar just said. Ivar says that there was never any evidence to begin with while sweating bullets. Ivar says that everything that Payman had said was simply all lies. The people gasp in unison. Barbados smiles widely and Marbus frowns. Dantalion's grin almost reaches his ears. Payman screams Ivar's name, snapping her fan in fury. She asks what he just said and tells him to say it again. Ivar once again says that there was no evidence to show. Payman asks if Ivar wanted to die this badly, saying that she will kill him right away. Marbus slams his foot on the ground, cracking the tiles on the floor and sending shockwaves through the room. He yells at Payman to stay back, saying that it was a sacred night of Walpergis. Payman, still furious, then asks for Torkel to be summoned instead. She says that Torkel was her personal consultant at Kunkuska. Torkel asks if he was called for immediately, making everyone turn their heads toward him as he stands in front of the crowd. Ivar's expression goes dark upon seeing him, and Dantalion wonders who this old goblin was, thinking that it didn't make a difference either way. What difference could a little servant make at this point, he thought. This was the end for both Ivar and Payman. Torkel looks over at Ivar, studying his face, understanding the gravity of the situation from Ivar's expression. Payman snaps, saying that Torkel had told her that Dantalion was the one who spread the plague. She says that there was no doubt about it. Torkel says that she was right, that what Payman said was correct. He says that he was the one who said that Dantalion was the culprit. He continues and says that they were all lies made up by him. Marbus stares at the goblin. Ivar wonders what Torkel was saying, and Dantalion's eyes narrow. Payman clenches her fist and asks what Torkel was saying. She asks if Ivar had put him up to this. Torkel says that he had not received orders from anyone. He says that he orchestrated all this on his own. Payman snaps once again, telling him to say the truth. She says that there was no way he could pull something like this off. She says that they have known each other for a long time and that she knows what he was like. She says that she wasn't asking him this as an employer, but as his longtime friend. She asks again who was behind all this. Torkel once again says that everything was done by him alone. He says that he wanted to obtain the black herb that Dantalion had and that he couldn't do something like that on his own. However, he had two people he could use, the two being Payman and Ivar. Payman asks what Torkel was saying, her eyes going blurry. Torkel says that he took advantage of Payman's benevolence and Ivar's power. He lets out a silent laugh after finishing. Dantalion couldn't believe what he was seeing. Marbus asks if the little goblin was saying that he used a demon lord to fulfill his own selfish desires. He asks if the goblin understands the gravity of his sin. Torkel says that he was aware of it, and that since all his plans had failed, he had no other choice. He says that the only fault that could be attributed to Payman was that she placed her trust in an old fool like him. In his thoughts, Torkel says that he would count on Ivar, as this was the last thing he could do for Ivar and Payman. He says that he will pay the price for the sin with his life while bringing the knife to his throat. Everyone watches in shock, and before anyone could even move, he stabs himself in front of them, falling dead on the floor where he stood. Payman takes a few steps forward, but her knees give out. She says that this can't be happening. While crying, she says that this wasn't why she called him here. Her attendants quickly come up to her, asking if she was all right. One of them looks at Marbus. Marbus tells them to take her away. While Payman was leaving, Marbus turns to Dantalion. Barbados laughs once again, saying that the whore got what she deserved. She asks why Payman doesn't take the goblin's corpse for a spin as well. Marbus tells Barbados to shut up. Dantalion kneels in front of Torkel's corpse, thinking that this goblin really just took his own life for the sins of Ivar and Payman. With this, Ivar and Payman were simply victims. He thinks that it was admirable. Ivar was still in the corner, crying. Dantalion salutes Torkel for his commitment, even ending his own life. Marbus walks up behind Dantalion and says that he would personally ensure that Payman would pay for what happened. Dantalion turns around, cutting Marbus off, saying that there was no need to punish Payman. Marbus looks at him in surprise. Barbados, who was about to leave, turns around after hearing that. Dantalion says that Payman was simply used, and now that Torkel was dead, there was no one who could be held responsible. Marbus says that Dantalion had an admirable perspective, increasing his lickability. Marbus says that he respects Dantalion, and that the graciousness Dantalion showed on this night would be remembered for a long time. He turns and says that there was no longer a need to hold a majority vote, as many things had happened. He raises his hand and says that he concluded Walpergis' night. He tells everyone that he was going to treat all of them to some drinks. Barbados asks when Marbus got this generous and says that she won't hesitate and will drink as much as she wants. She then curls her finger while looking at Dantalion, telling him to go drink with her. Dantalion thinks that Barbados was going to be a real pain from now on. The night continues, and the nobles and demon lords enjoy the event, while Ivar takes Torkel's corpse and walks away in silence, thinking that it was her fault they lost, asking Torkel for forgiveness and promising to repay this debt one day. Later that night at the observation deck, Dantalion lets out a long sigh. Barbados had made him drink way more than he could handle. He wonders how someone so tiny could drink that much. While walking down the stairs, he thinks that he got a little drunk. Even so, after reincarnating into the world of Dungeon Attack, many things had happened so far. While laughing to himself, he asks if his worthless father was seeing this. He says that he was having the time of his life. Lala comes from behind, saying that she was expecting to see him there. Dantalion says that it was to be expected of his fiancée to know him very well. Lala says that what he did just now was too reckless. She asks why he would forgive Payman. She asks if it was really okay to leave the root of the problem unresolved. She asks if he hadn't let a troublesome opponent escape. Dantalion asks if Lala was giving him a lecture now and asks her to give him a break. She looks at him with a serious face and he asks why she was making that face. He tells her that Payman was nothing to him and that his thoughts were beyond anyone else's in this world. He says that he had big plans. He tells her not to worry and that as promised he would give her a view that no one had ever seen before. Lala's eyes go wide for a second. She says that she understands, surprising Dantalion. He asks why she was being this obedient today, as usually she would be scolding him. Lala pulls on his collar and kisses him on the lips. Once she lets him go, Dantalion stumbles back, embarrassed, asking what Lala was doing. Lala says that she was aware of Dantalion's true nature. Dantalion says that he only made her his fiancée for the sake of her plans, and that he might even let her die, like during the situation with Ivar, just for the sake of his plans. Lala says that she knows that. She says that she trusts him completely with a slight blush. Dantalion says that this was the first time he had seen this. While grabbing her by the waist and pulling her close, he says that this was the first time he saw her smile. Then they kiss once again under the moonlight.